Brother, the revolutionary yourself, Darius Lockhart, and I'm here to tell you to watch Powerbombshells every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel. That's right, every Sunday at 1 p.m. and that's on time, every time, because when we stand together, what time is it? That's right, it's nation time.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 134 of Powerbombshells. I am Sam and that is Mel. We are just two broads talking about the wrestling that we watch and also running late because we both had some issues right before the podcast started.
Folks, all right?
But we're here.
Although I appreciate Brad saying that he was going to have to start without us. So.
Listen, we were here reading your comments in the chat. We were just getting situated. And Nikki called it right when it was funny because Mel was putting her hat on right when this came up in the chat.
That was hilarious because I was literally, Sam's not kidding, I was putting it on and she said Nikki called it. I was like, oh really? Because I didn't look. Nicely done. We finally had someone get it.
Yes, I think that's the second time. Didn't Nikki get it a few weeks ago? Or was that Brad?
I think
that was Brad. Brad got it.
We gave him the wizard hat because the hat looked close enough to a wizard hat.
Somebody should keep. Are we keeping tally, like official count of this? Unofficial account of it, or official unofficial count?
We're 134 episodes, and I think they've only guessed it like a couple times. But still, I mean, maybe we should take.
Well, you didn't start your hat gimmick till what, this year? End of last year? No,
this
year, right?
It was Christmas.
Yeah, that's right. Christmas, and then that's right, and then it became a thing.
It was for Christmas. I was doing it mostly for Christmas, but
yes,
it just decided to be part of our deal.
Yeah, and now it's almost.
I have a fair number of hats. Fortunately, because my husband's been working in retail and restaurant sales for years, we have so many swag hats.
I'm sure you do. Never ending.
You know,
Nikki said she got it
together. I should go wear my Assassin's Creed hat sometime.
Will Ospreay would appreciate that.
That
would be perfect for a pre-show.
That would be. I'll have to keep that.
There is one coming up on October the 12th. Now we're hitting that point where they're monthly. We used to hit them. we had that stretch between what was it, Double or Nothing and All In. All In, where we had that big like 8-week gap. And now we've gone back to, well, other than All Out obviously being 8 days later, we're going back to monthly pre-shows now. So, and it seems like next year's schedule is going to be stacked too. So
it sounds like that's not going to change much.
No, it sounds like this new WBD deal is going to have the pay-per-views on the max. Andrew Zarian was saying yesterday.
That is what Andrew Zarian is reporting.
Yes, and that's kind of been the rumor on and off. It was like unofficial. So I mean, we still don't have word, but I think that's probably the closest confirmation we've had. Like I know BJ Bethel has talked about it. Andrew has been reporting it. Kind of, I think, a lot of people have been kind of reporting it like that it was happening. They were just working out the details and that type of thing. And it sounds yesterday, Andrew Zarian seemed pretty sure like that's coming. It's going to happen in January, which makes sense. A, it's the first of the year. B, Raw is moving to Netflix. It would make sense for AEW to announce, hey, pay-per-views are coming to Max. Hopefully that also means their catalog is going to Max. I'm hoping that's what is included in that.
A little like that from the one I was listening to Garrett's episode. And it did sound like there might be some access to some of the. I'm hoping they put the history and some of the dark and
Elevation. I would love to see Dark and Elevation. Everybody still needs to go see that Jody Threat match with Athena. Actually, that's still on YouTube. You can still go see that. But and didn't Max and France like load past AEW pay-per-views? I think I saw that a few days ago. And that's when rumors started coming out again, because the Max and France uploaded things like a few weeks ago, but then I think like recently they've added even more stuff. So
because I know that There was also I read a thing somewhere along the line. There was a similar thing where people were going on Max and seeing AEW content on there,
Right.
and
Yes,
I was
they
like,
weren't.
"Ooh!" And
They
I
weren't
think it was
exactly
like for
subtle
5
about
minutes,
it.
but I actually saw a couple of episodes, and I was like, "Huh, I wonder if they're playing around with the platform or."
Probably.
I mean, it's middle of the day or whatever, and
Right.
but I mean,
Yeah,
between
so they probably thought nobody would catch it, and of course somebody happened to be on at the right time, or they left it on and they're just like
they
waiting.
don't understand the hive mind.
Right. Right.
They don't understand the amount of media that we all intake every day, whether we like it or not, but also that we choose to like blast ourselves with. I mean,
Right.
how many times have you been guilty of like, I mean, you might even be happening right now. How many times have you been guilty of like watching a wrestling show and watching a football game?
I have the base. The Braves game's coming on
Braves.
soon. The Panthers I don't know that I even want to watch them, but they don't play till 4. So I have the Braves pregame show is on right now because I know that the game will be on. And so I will be able to look up at it and see. So yes.
Exactly.
And I know we appreciate those of you who are watching football in the background, or maybe us in the background and have football on and maybe we're muted, but regardless, we appreciate you being here. Brad brings up a good point that still waiting for word if it'll be the UFC ESPN way of still paying for the pay-per-view or WWE/Peacock way of getting them with your sub. Well, and the New Japan world the same way. You have the subscription and then you have to pay. I mean, obviously not like Wrestle Kingdom and things like that. Like there's still shows included in it, but they're like the Capital, like the New Japan USA shows, and I think Crossover is a pay-per-view now too, and you have to pay extra to watch it through World. So
I know. I mean, Forbidden Door is a pay-per-view, so it's a pay-per-view. Like if you want to watch it on New Japan through the Japanese service, you have to buy it there too, or you buy it on regular pay-per-view with your gear.
Yeah.
And then just like you said, and it's similar on even Wrestle Universe for some of the big Noah shows and so forth occasionally but they mostly
even Triller is that way.
Crossover shows and what I do like about Wrestle Universe is they generally tend to not too long in the future drop them on the service.
Yeah,
they're way quicker about
3 weeks or a month. I think
is that what?
I was gonna say, I think New Japan World, I think like when they do like Capital Collision or something like that, I think it's like a month, 3 weeks to 4 weeks before they put it up, something like that.
So,
and then it sounds like yours that Wrestle Universe gets theirs maybe a little bit faster.
Faster sometimes. Like I think they are trying to build more. I mean, they've got more of an audience building situation going on.
Yeah.
I think,
well, and Triller is that way too. Like I have the monthly subscription to Triller, but like Bloodsport, unless it's that More Than Mania week where there's like all the shows where that's in it. But like Bloodsport there's been several Bloodsport since then, and it's a pay-per-view that you have to purchase. And there's a couple of there's some events like that on Triller, and like the obviously like the Maple Leaf Pro is coming up next month. That's Scott D'Amore's thing, and they're doing it's a 2-day event, so they have a package offer where you can pay a certain fee to watch both, to have access to both shows. So
I think that's
a lot
smart.
of people are kind of testing things out, and I know obviously Maple Leaf Pro is really smart to do it because they know a lot of people are going to want to watch that because A, it's Scott D'Amore, and B, it's like Takeshita, it's Speedball, Josh Alexander, Athena.
That's right.
Yeah, because Athena's defending her title there. There's a bunch. Yeah, and there's a few people that have been announced that I'm not familiar with, but I'm assuming they're probably in the Canadian scene. And then you've got Don Callis is part of it. Morrow is part of it. Like there's a lot of really cool stuff. So I think that's a great way to get people's attention for sure. And so cool.
Nikki and Brad corrected us. It was Daza that got the lizard hat. So let's give
credit
to real quick, just so I know.
So when Daza comes back and watches the replay, he doesn't yell at us.
Well, see, but Nikki and Brad had his back. Like,
well, we appreciate that. I'm glad that you had that correct. So maybe we should keep a tally.
This is why they would be the best stand-in host for us in our chat.
This is true. This is true.
If anyone's going to take over the show,
they know the lore of the Powerbombshells.
They know our chrono. They know our canon.
They do know our canon.
Powerbombshells canon. Oh, hey everybody that's showing up and saying
Yes,
hello.
hello.
Good to
Thank
see
you for
you
joining us
all.
today.
Welcome.
We were a few minutes. Well, I was gonna say we were a few minutes late, but as I always say, we're like Gandalf. We arrive
time.
precisely when we mean to.
Wizard
So we are
time.
here, and you arrive precisely when you mean to. So we are glad that you are here, whatever time that is, or if you're watching on the replay, we appreciate that too, because we're still here. And I see that you have because last week, if you were watching the show, Mel was wearing her Hotties for Hendry hat, and it looks like today she's wearing a Hotties for Hendry t-shirt.
Hotties for Hendry t-shirt. So there that is. And
I
love that I know that the little hearts are like, I love that. I love that.
It's from if you've missed this last week, Lo from Wrestling Wind Down had said on her Twitter when she released this collection that the logo and the hearts come from Flava of Love, which was Flava Flav's dating show on VH1 back in the day.
I've forgotten that even existed. I'm so glad that sometimes I'm mad when people remind me of things because I'm like, oh, that would have been better forgotten. I'm like, okay, that was kind of funny though. I do remember that because he had a lot of funny shows on MTV.
He did. Yeah.
Actually entertaining. Back when MTV it was like still back when MTV and murder. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when VH1 was all up in it. That's when VH1 was really starting its reality show stuff. Too was when they were doing Flavor Love and
VH1 they
Rock
did that
of Love
pop-up
with
video stuff, and I was addicted.
Oh my god,
crap.
pop-up video! Nikki and I still talk about that. We used to have MTV Classic with our cable package, and they would put pop-up videos on them, and we would go back and like rewatch them all the time. Yes,
that was
like, I know so many random facts because of pop-up video.
Such a good idea, such an amazing that whole concept actually kind of like a lot of people have done it since. And I was like,
yeah.
So I always am like, you stole that for pop-up video.
They were the forefathers. Look at them, man. But
that's that's the way the cookie crumbles. Nobody gets the credit for pioneering. I mean, I was podcasting all the way back in 2012, and now now everybody's got a podcast.
And here we are.
I'm just kidding. Oh my god, you've been doing this for over 10 years. What's wrong with you?
I'm 2.5 years in, and sometimes it's like, no. Actually, I really love doing this. It's like I would not be here. I would not be here if I didn't love to do it.
I mean, not like some of the stuff we cover is not precisely fun, but overall the experience of hanging out and talking with you and not having to sit there and like write and research and do stuff like that, where you get to like actually interact. It's kind of fun.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you guys are great having interactions with us. We really appreciate how interactive you are. And then like people will come to us even on Twitter and tag us and stuff and have conversations with us, which is cool too. And it's so weird. And I appreciate it, but sometimes people like, I know that they're waiting on like my reaction to something, or they'll be like, are you going to talk about this on the show? Which I think is really cool. I'm glad that people look for us for that, or knowing that they can have that interaction with us where they can also have the conversation with us, which is really cool. And so that's probably my favorite part of it, is just being able to have these conversations and to build a little community where we can talk to each other and not scream at each other, because we know certain podcasters, that's their clickbait, and that's how they react to things, is by
we prefer not to exist in the toxic sphere, because there's plenty of that. If you want that, you can go find it.
There's plenty of it for you. We try not to do that here.
No.
So
we
get mad at situations here, at certain people, like this case that we'll be talking about a little bit. And I'm sure once that documentary drops, we'll have a lot to say. I did hear, speaking of that, one of my editors got access to early screening of the documentary, and said that it was way better than they expected, and that nobody can say that they didn't go hard on him. So
I hope so.
Yeah. So I was like, that's the part. I've heard other people have like, there's been the engagement accounts reporting, supposedly this was said, and supposedly they're mad at Dave Meltzer because Dave was asked about it and Dave didn't hold back, or they asked this person about it, but that's the first person I've talked to who has actually seen what was in it, and they were like, they went in on him, or they at least covered it in a way that you would hope. So
Interesting.
So
I know at some point, I can't remember who I was listening to, there were like questions about, but again, it's until it really drops and until you, unless you've actually got a screener, which obviously they've been very, very liberal or conservative with, they want us to wait. They want us to have the discussion at the same time. And I mean,
and so they're dropping all 6 episodes on Wednesday. I think a Variety article I saw said at 3 a.m. I guess because it's midnight West Coast time.
Got it.
So I guess that's why it would be 3 a.m. here. Obviously, UK, it would be 8 a.m. for them. So it would be a little bit better. But they're dropping all 6 episodes at one time. And like, you know, Garrett has said, like, I'm going to probably have to take a half a day off so I can watch.
He already told me he's taking
all of it.
He finally confirmed it.
Yeah. He was like,
he told us.
He was like, I can't. He's like, because you're going to miss things and things are going to get out from people who've already seen it. That's going to get clipped to death. We know.
He actually even mentioned today in the Discord that they were going to try. He and Dave had a conversation about how they were going to tackle talking about it, and that they want to take a different approach to how, like, a different cadence, essentially, to encourage more discussion and not be like, and I mean, Garrett, that tends to be Garrett's wheelhouse anyway, is not being judgy, but being like examinatory, you know, investigative, like this person said this and this is this and these are the things that are happening. And so, I mean, in his, like, he knows it, we know it, you know it, you've already written like some articles that are, I mean, you obviously we're going to get to it, but like, because of, you know, the press conference this week and so forth, and people like you and BJ and Brandon Thurston and John Pollock doing all of these, like continuing to just stay on top of this thing in whatever way that you're like being committed to it. And I was like, that's good that they're even talking about how they want to present the conversation. That's really good. I find that to be encouraging and responsible. So I hope that is
agreed,
because it's not going to be easy, and he's going to take shit no matter. I mean, they're all going to take shit.
Everybody's going to take shit and the bots will be out in full force.
Oh, it's going to be Vince apologism 1,000 billion degrees.
I mean, they have sent bots after me before. They did it just awesome innocuous tweet about the New York Post, and I said, fuck Vince McMahon and fuck the New York Post. And that's all I said, and woke up the next morning to all kinds of replies, and I muted it because I knew, because at first I was looking at it and then like BJ actually was looking at some of the accounts, and he was like, oh, you can see where they're bots, where they take it over other people's accounts. Like you can see like tweets from like that's been dormant for like this many years, and then all of a sudden it started, and they're all
their
like
specific numbers, or they, I mean, it's so funny because 2016 politics Twitter taught me so much.
Right.
And I am grateful for it. It's a little bit, I mean, at least it taught me also how to turn it off, which was great.
Right.
I don't do the doom scrolling thing anymore. I'm very much, because I mean, it's too easy, and it's getting closer and it's getting worse. And as you also living in a swing state know, we're getting hammered on every single media outlet that we could. My Instagram has it. My Twitter has it.
I have it on YouTube.
My YouTube. Oh my God,
YouTube ads constantly.
My YouTube is getting. Oh, I was watching Peacock because I've been doing a rewatch of Homicide: Life on the Streets because I haven't seen it since the 90s, and it was one of my all-time favorite shows. It, like, launched me into being interested in the entire field of like law and politics and all of these things. And I swear to God, and this is like specific to Peacock, but it was like it was like pure propaganda. Sickles, Red Scare, like they were like Comrade Kamala. It was going, I was like, wait a minute, is this a real ad? So I waited to see if it was on some other thing. and it's only been on Peacock, so I don't know what the deal is there. But
I'm guessing they just purchased.
And I'm sure it's my ISP. Also, obviously, they know I'm a Michigan voter, and that sort of thing definitely plays with the
same here. Because
our WNJ crowd.
It's constant here because we're a swing state too.
Swing state.
And so it's
actually, it was cute. Jon Stewart, he did a whole like piece on it, and he showed all the states that are swing states, and he was like, and all of us are waiting to hear what, and he called it like, it was like Pawinick, like he put all of our state abbreviations together and called it a country. It was pretty accurate. And so he like highlighted it. It's like the weird, because it's like such a weird section of it. And he's like, so all of us are waiting for what that country has to decide the election.
That's fairly accurate.
And I was like, dang. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. I've lived a lot of places. It is so purple here.
I have lived here all of my life, but it's really become a swing state within the last few years. And it has just, the political ads are just nonstop. They were like that. Obviously in 2016, even leading into 2016, we were getting stuff. And then it's just nonstop. Like literally every single commercial break. And especially if you're watching a main, like one of the main networks, like an ABC, it's
just your morning news.
It's constant. Like every single commercial break is that. And then there's like, there's like a nutrition bar ad, or like they throw that in there.
It's the pharmaceutical industry, the lawyers, and the insurance companies must be pissed in Michigan. Because Michigan is notorious. Actually, even my brother-in-law was making fun of this because we've got those TV lawyers that are all like, have you been hit by a truck, or you hurt in the job? Did you slip and fall on your neighbor's front yard? Like, call Mike. Mike 1-800 Mike wins. So
ours is, there's a guy that's here and his thing is in pain call. And it's and it's those, like, so we still get those, but not quite as often because
we get hammered with those usually, because there's about 5 big major law firms here.
I was watching, I can't remember what show I was watching, and the commercial break was nearly all insurance lawyers. And it was like, it would rotate, like it was the same, like 3 or 4 lawyers, but it would like rotate, or it would be like 2 this commercial break, and then the next commercial would be like 1 from that one plus another one, and then like
it's hilarious.
And so they probably are pissed because it's getting political stuff is being bought out where they can't air their ads as much. So they have to wait until
they must be
November.
Yeah, they must be really bummed out that they can't, get those dog bite cases.
Yeah. Right.
We won't obviously spend too much time on this, but is obviously in the culture right now for all of us. And and both of us living in states where we're getting completely inundated with just one after
Thursday
another.
Was insane because it was just like one major story after another, besides living in North Carolina with, like, we've known for a long time about Mark Robinson. and the ads that they run with him and the things that he says, like he has said some truly awful things, particularly about women, and those ads have played. And then so when all that stuff came out, I was like, yeah, that tracks with everything we know about him. And
I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that story break, because you've talked to me about this a bit, is I saw that story break and I LOL'd pretty hard because I was like, screw that guy.
And
thanks for helping Sam State out just
like, it was funny because not funny because it's awful, but like he was already going to lose before this came out. Like he's already down like 9 points. And then this all came out, and then he decided to stay in the race. I was like, okay, well,
when you're on like batshit party is bailing on you, maybe
some of them, yes, but then the
time to read the
NCGOP
room.
put out NCGOP. I guess when it became clear he wasn't dropping out, the
They have to.
NCGOP put out
They
a
don't have a
statement
choice.
saying they stood behind him and all this crap, even though they're the ones who leaked it.
Well, they
but-
have to because ballots have been mailed.
Yeah,
I don't know about
he had until 11:59 p.m. Thursday night, which is why the information. That's why they leaked the information they did, and it was his own party that did it. It was not. It was his own party because they were trying to get rid of him, and it didn't work. So now they have to stand behind him.
Wow.
Yes, it was his own party that did it.
I did not realize it was.
Yeah, it was his own party.
That's it's not funny. But
it's not
the madness that's going on. It's like at least one of you is getting outed, like for really real.
Yeah, and then so then there's that was happening, and then the RFK Jr. story came out, and then there was something else came out, and then they were like, and you probably missed it and all the craziness on Thursday. This also came out on Thursday, but most people didn't see it because the other two stories were dominating everything.
Right.
And then the Matt Gaetz story also came out on before I went to bed on Thursday.
Right.
I saw the Matt Gaetz story before I went to bed, and I was like, and it was funny because people I follow in other places stayed up until 12:01 because they were waiting to see what Mark Robinson would do, and they tweeted one of my local reporters and said, "This is what I stayed up to see, was if he was going to drop out." And so they stayed up till that tweet came out at 12:01 a.m.
That is that is wild.
It's wild.
I mean,
So
it's not funny.
And I had already been Thursday was insane anyway because I was covering the Janel stuff. I wrote about it. I'd already started an article the day before for Fight Game Media about her new representation. And so I just added some of that stuff in. So I wrote both of those. Then I had to watch ROH and write about Athena because that was my whole plan anyway, was all right, she's broken the record. She broke the record on Sunday. Let's see what happens between now and then. I'm going to write about it. And then this other stuff happened. And then as I'm writing these things, the political stuff is going on too. So I'm trying to kind of keep an eye on it. And so Thursday was insane. And it was funny because I was talking to BJ about how I still had to get to the Athena article. And he was like, yeah, that's the life of a writer. Either nothing going on, everything at one time.
Evan, it's either feast or famine.
Right. Yes.
You guys have been doing such a good job too. So I mean, I'm glad that Garrett's got that back up and that we've been able to do all that stuff. And I actually appreciated that you were covering it because I was like, oh, cool. Because I went back and read through it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I really appreciate that my co-host tweets all these things because it not only saves me from watching it, but I actually get the information.
Right. Well, this one was. We'll get to it in a second because I want to. I want to go back to this comment that I saw real quick before we get into that. But Vinkin asked if anybody was watching The Queen of Villains. I have not started it yet. But speaking of FightGameMedia.com, Justin Nipper is watching it, and he is writing. He's writing an article for each episode. The first article is already up on fightgamemedia.com, and then I know that he has written a couple more, and I think they're going up tomorrow. I think because I sent him, there was a tweet from Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss did the voiceover, or I guess basically the voiceover for the English version of one of the wrestlers. I can't remember which wrestler it was. And so I had sent it to Justin, and Justin said that he didn't know, he had missed that, but he was watching both the English and the Japanese versions because there's slight differences between the two. And then also Brad mentioned, and I've seen the thread, but I haven't really watched it or kept up with it because I haven't started the show yet, but that there's a Twitter thread that goes through each episode to explain what's true or false. And then they also include the matches that are featured in that episode. And so that is really cool that somebody took the time to do that so that people can catch up on, and see that stuff, because I don't know anything about not anything enough. I've gathered a little bit of information from the trailers, but I don't really know much about them, and I didn't realize that they were in WCW. She was in WCW before I started watching, I think, and so like I didn't know any of that, and so I'm really interested to see.
Yeah,
but
I
I've
keep
heard
hearing how good
nothing
it
but good
is.
things.
So I
Yeah,
was
that's what
like,
I'm
well,
saying. I've heard nothing.
I mean, that's definitely in my wheelhouse anyway. But yeah, like Brad and Garrett and those guys were talking about how you can watch both. So
Right, which is very cool. So yeah,
that is really cool. Netflix is actually, I give them a lot of credit. Like, I mean, Bob is always like wandering around, but like we watched so many freaking films from Iceland over the last like 7 months. But it's like, and Norway. But I appreciate the fact that it's like there and it's available, and
yeah,
I like that you can watch like how other people do westerns or action flicks or
right.
I mean, a lot of those are sort of like there are things. I mean, not too much. I mean, I don't want to take credit from the Asian population who like built the samurai, the crazy fun samurai. I mean, that we've basically stolen like all the stories from either like all our TV shows are from Britain, and all of our movies are that.
It was funny because I was watching the Emmys last week, and I forget the show that won like best reality show. It was a game show, and Alan Cumming is the host of it, and he was like, we need to thank Holland because all the best game show ideas come from Holland, and we take them, and they come to America and have been taken. And he's like, so thank you to Holland for all of their ideas, basically.
That's awesome, because I mean, it's true when you look at a lot of the stuff. It's very much. I mean, The Office is straight. Like, I mean, that's old school, but like that was straight. That was a straight British film. I mean, or British show. So Ricky Gervais. But yes. Anyway, we've been a little tangenty today, and it's, understandable. Plus, we've been talking to you guys. So.
Yes.
But I do want to check out Queen of Villains. I'm just really deep into this watch of Homicide because...
Yeah, I think that's probably going to come a little bit later because I'm going to get to I got to get to the Vince stuff.
The Vince stuff on Wednesday. Well, it sucks because that's both...
I still have to finish The Bear, so that will come... finishing The Bear will come before I get to.
The good news about that though is that that's like a nice one to take a. I mean, it's not.
Well, we saw the first 3 episodes the day it dropped, and then we haven't seen any since then because we just got behind, and then G1 was there, and then there's just been other things, and we were watching because we know that like once we start watching, it's going to be hard for us to stop. And so. Sometimes instead of like, hey, we've got an hour where we can watch a couple episodes of The Bear, we're like, or we can clear some stuff off the DVR and not get sucked into.
I think you guys are doing it right. I think
but we need to see it. So
I think when the
it's
holidays
pretty hard
to
avoid things because it's been out long enough now.
Yeah,
that it's hard for us to avoid stuff. So like we've got to get to it. Maybe like today or something. We've got to.
That one's tough for me. I mean, I didn't want to watch it too fast and couldn't stop. So
it is.
Got it done in like 3 days.
3 episodes the night that it dropped, and we had to make ourselves stop after the 3rd episode. We were like, we have to cut it off here.
And I mean, that one sometimes gets too intense where I do have to take a break. It's kind of
I can understand. And I heard this season was very intense, and I heard some people didn't like it as much as the first 2, and they're hoping season 4 gets back on track. I mean, they didn't go into details because they know I haven't seen it yet. But I have heard, and I know that they filmed most of season 4 with season 3. They filmed them because everybody's schedule is so busy that they filmed most of season 4 already. And then they were talking to somebody after the Emmys, and he was like, yeah, we still have a little bit of work left on season 4, but they mostly because like Jeremy Allen White's and a bunch of stuff. Well, like all of a lot of the main actors are already booked and other things, and so they had to film them when they had them all together, basically.
Well, I think people are underestimating. Like it seems like everyone forgot. But guys, the actors, writers, and directors all went on strike for a significant period of time. Like, TV's not back to normal yet.
Right.
It's not remotely back to normal.
No.
It's only they're like getting to a point, because you can tell where they're like going to be rolling out these fall shows in like October or whatever. And
there's summer starting. Like Grey's Anatomy starts this week. That starts on Thursday. Like, so like, they're starting.
That's basically where the business seems to be marking, like, we're finally catching up.
Yeah,
because they're the ones that they're starting to roll out in the coming weeks.
And like, I know Bob's Burgers just started its new season a couple of weeks ago, because we've watched one of the episodes. So they've started, like, Fox has started their season with their I mean, I guess there are other stuff too, but like, I know the cartoon stuff that they show like on Sundays has already started. And so it is starting to get into that period where it's coming back. And Brad said that's his job, and he can tell from experience that productions are still not near where they were even after the pandemic, before the strike happened. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and that's
the combo was huge. That was a huge
they got that industry got hit hard. I mean, obviously a lot of them did, restaurants and other things like that, but yeah, the strike, and then they didn't recover from the pandemic, and then the strike happened, and then so
and I mean, rightfully so. I mean, I don't want to be like having my AI get like not paid while they're looking just like, I mean, that's like,
right. Yeah.
AI taking people's jobs is a universal problem. So
yeah, actually just retweeted a thread today about AI and art, because the conversation came up again about wrestling companies using AI picture like shirts, because there was the big thing a few months ago with AEW putting out the AI MJF shirt, and MJF had nothing to he like took credit. I mean, like, he realized, like, he had conversations with some artists that he'd used in the past, and then he commissioned them to make new shirts, and then AEW has, to their credit, hired 5 new artists, plus they have Mel Colvin, yet the AI shirt is still up today. And they were saying that that's not MJF's fault that shirt is still up. Apparently that was a decision by AEW or whatever to keep that in place. And so they were talking about how, like, it's still, and obviously WWE, I mean, WWE has put out AI generated art too. So it's something that both companies are doing, and they need to be held accountable for it. So I'm glad that these artists are, because I had no clue it was still up until today. And that was, probably two or 3 months ago that happened. And I thought the shirt had been pulled down because they released new MJF shirt that had been made by a real artist that he's used before. And so I was surprised that the shirt was still up, and it is. So that's a fun thing to have to deal with.
Sorry, dog ruckus.
No, it's okay. I saw and I was like,
and it's not directly, but it sort of is another content creator. There's this great podcaster called Dan Carlin. He does hardcore history. I don't know if you've ever listened. I'm pretty sure people like Mike Gilbert and so forth are, because I've talked about it with people. Right. His the artist that has been doing his art for him passed away this week.
Oh my gosh.
Sadly, and fairly, I mean, like our age, basically.
Oh my God.
But some jerk went on there and was like, take all of his artwork and upload it to AI. And Dan, to his credit, because he is the kind of person, said, not only do I think that would be a detriment and a disservice to his the work that he did, his incredible work, we also we would prefer to pay a human being to do our artwork.
Right.
So, and I was like,
good for them.
Yes, that's why I love this podcast. That's why I've loved it for 10 years. Thank you.
Right.
I mean,
100%.
And I mean, he's a pretty big name online. So listen to Dan Carlin, folks. He is a super smart dude.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it. But like CGI, AI is here, but there needs to be rules and regulations. And the US is already behind on it. Europe got ahead of it, or got out pretty quickly, and we are still, and it's it can be used to enhance, but right now people don't. And like when Twitter users or Instagram users are using these, like there was the thing a few months ago, it was like create my Funko Pop. Well, they were using stolen AI to make your Funko Pop. And then they were doing, there was that trend where they made you in different version, like different characters and stuff. And that was all stolen AI art. And so people are unknowing, and then if you tell them that's a stolen AI, they don't care because they're like, oh, it's just a Twitter trend. But that's how they train you to think it's okay and not question what you're doing.
Exactly right.
And so and that's how it gets into. So I agree that, I mean, AI is here to stay, but there needs to be way more rules and regulations for it, and you got to be careful. Like I don't want to lose my writing job.
I was just gonna say, you're another content.
Sports Illustrated is art.
How about Powerbombshells is just an AI show now?
Right. It's like Sports Illustrated already got caught using AI writers. Yeah, there's deep. God,
there's been so much, like, it should be illegal. There's been so much deep faking going on for the things like the election that it's just.
But there was, even before that, they were doing deep fakes of famous celebrities, mainly women, and were putting out nude photos of them that weren't real, but people didn't know that. And so, I mean, there's got to be regulation on them, and there should have been.
And actually, there was a case. One thing that is nice, or not, but I mean, in terms of jurisprudence, Kelly Carlin, someone put together a AI George Carlin thing about. Like,
I saw that. Yeah.
And they didn't have her permission. They didn't have the estate's permission. They didn't have anybody's permission to do that. And she was very upset, understandably. And as someone who's lost their dad at an age like, I mean, we were basically about the same age. And someone who is a great admirer of her father, unbelievably rude and stupid. And but she actually took them to court and won. So and it was quick. They were like, take it down, destroy it, and like, because she really just, I mean, she wasn't suing for money or anything. She wanted it taken down. She wanted an apology, and she wanted to make sure these people were never allowed to do something like this again.
Yeah. So. Well, and then it needs to be out there, like, this is what can happen. And Brad says 100% agreement. SAG went on strike to combat that, and the industry is still using it. Yes, and companies don't care, and phone companies are adding it to new phones that helping out. Yeah, I cannot stand that phones are using it now. And then, like,
don't see how it's going to affect their job. It's like, you've been doing the self-checkout and you don't see what's happening here.
Yeah, I have a friend.
The food haven't gone down, but you're doing the job that the people are in the.
My friend works in that we work at the same, we work together, but he also on the side does voiceover, and he was saying that, like, and he uses a voice out, like he has an agent, and he was saying that now some companies are going to AI instead of paying real people to do their voiceover or read their copy or whatever. And he said a lot of places have the option of, do you want a real human or do you want AI? And he was like, so far he has not personally been affected yet, but he's like, I know it's coming. And so he's like, he's trying to build up his clientele that want to work with humans or try to keep them using humans before they go to just AI. And then
I have 2 voiceover friends that if he wants more people, we'll talk offline. I have at least 2 friends that they make much of their money on the side from doing voiceover work.
Yeah, he's been doing voiceovers for
years,
5 or 6 years. Because he was before he was doing this, he was in radio, like he was a DJ.
Yeah,
and so
one of my friends was literally a voice of a G.I. Joe character back in the day.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so he's done a couple like national commercials and stuff like that, and so. Yeah.
It's not,
but it is definitely, it's because it's unknown and it's fairly unregulated. As
a humanist, I'm a humanist. So yeah, AI is here. It's going to be in our lives and all of those things, but it can be used responsibly and not just.
When people need to be taught how to use.
And a lot of the Google, not too long ago, a lot of Google engineers, because of the way that Google was using their AI. A flood of Google engineers actually left the company in protest, saying, and one of them, I remember the quote was something to the effect of, they are using it at like they are children sitting in a pile of, or in a pond of gasoline playing with matches. Jeez. Is what he compared it to.
Wow.
When he left. he made sure, I mean, it was like they had like a letter that they put out as a group, and a mass exodus of software engineers who were like,
I remember hearing about that.
No, because you're not, no, you're just trying to get the trucks to drive without having to pay people. And that's the universe. At the end of the day, this all comes down to greed. It's because they don't want to, you don't have to pay an AI.
Right.
You have to pay a person.
Oh, and there was a thing the other day that I was reading. I think it was Amazon was they were using robots. They had air conditioning because the robots can't be over a certain temperature. They don't work.
Yeah, the power core.
But then real humans weren't getting air conditioner in their warehouses.
Right.
So like that shows you they are like where their priorities are.
Yeah. Everything is, I know someone that worked there, and everything you've heard is true. And,
yeah, I know somebody who worked in I know somebody who used to work in a warehouse too. And
every bad thing you've ever
heard, a lot of the horror stories
that I too.
Yeah.
So I try as much as possible. It's again, I use my library. I use, if I can, locally stores. I buy Hotties for Henry shirt from Low, and I buy a lot of my, it's great because knowing Ren Fair people, like, they make a lot of stuff. So sometimes you can get something that you need that's normal every day.
There's farmers markets that have
they
have the farmers markets, but then they have artists that will come sell their stuff at the farmers markets. They have so there's that type of like jewelry makers and things like that too, where you can buy. You don't have to buy mass produced.
Please support your local human.
We try, as much as you can
in every way.
It's not always easy, we know, because believe me,
we're all. I try and this is something I tell myself all the time. It's hard out there right now for everybody. In general, unless you're some lucky 1%er, it's tough out there, man, for all of us.
Yeah, everything's
expensive. There's not enough time. There's not enough hours in the day. Yeah. Be nice. Give everybody a break. We're all in the same boat here.
We are. Most of us are. Yeah.
Agree with that. I mean, in terms of our communities, our neighbors and friends and people that we are interacting with, the people that aren't in our boat are trying to blow holes in it, and we know it. So we need to actually work together to keep our boat safe so that they don't win. But I mean, that's us getting overly preachy there. But also, I mean, it's really important because, like you said, you're a writer.
Yeah, I would like to keep my writing jobs.
I would like you to keep your writing jobs because an AI isn't going to be critical in the way, it's not going to take a critical eye a look at the situation the way that you can, because it doesn't have the multi-dimensional thinking capacity.
It doesn't have emotion, and it doesn't have the emotional thinking and intelligence. The emotional intelligence, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
Well, it doesn't have creativity, which is something you cannot capture. They've not been. You can't.
I mean,
creativity
maybe
isn't.
Years they'll get to that point, but at this point, right now, they don't have that capability yet. But I'm sure it's coming.
I'm sure. I mean, probably what they'll end up doing is just implanting us with. We'll be all cybernetic or something.
I hope not.
But RoboCop took place here in Detroit.
It sure. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
If you need to make a dystopian movie, Detroit is for you. That's one of our great claims to fame.
Lucky you.
I'm so proud of us.
All right, I guess we should get into actual wrestling stuff.
We've avoided this as long as we possibly can.
It wasn't even on purpose because we had openings a couple times, but I didn't want to. I wanted to get to Vinkin's comment because I have heard really good things about the Queens and Villains show, and
also the Jimmy Uso comment.
The Jimmy Uso thing is, it turns out Jimmy is fine. The reason I think Rikishi said what he said is because the day before is all the comments about what he and Mick Foley said about Vince McMahon came out.
Okay.
And that's everything the internet was talking about. And he all of a sudden said, "Pray for my son." And other people were like, "We've reached out to Jimmy and he's fine." So it was.
Okay. That's why I wanted to ask you what that was about, because I knew you would know. I'm like, what?
Hold on. Nah, somebody is getting banned. Fuck that. If you come here and talk shit about Janel Grant, you're banned. I will not. We're not
And
putting up
hammer.
with that shit. You come. We're not doing that here.
Thank you. And I wholeheartedly endorse and agree with my co-host on that. You don't get to come in here.
We don't do that here. Take your bots, or if that's your real opinion, get the fuck out of here.
You're entitled to it, but get out.
I don't care if we get demonetized for that. We're not. I will tell you right now.
Yeah.
Don't come here with that.
I didn't see it, and I'm glad I didn't. Good
No,
job.
there were 2 comments in a row from the same person, and so
Bye.
not doing that.
Well, that's not the kind of environment we foster here in our community, because the people that come here, and it's disrespectful to us and disrespectful to our group here that show up every week.
Disrespectful to Janel Grant. So.
And well, we get because we're going to get into that. I mean,
yeah, that's actually what we were getting ready to. Perfect timing for the troll to come in here.
Thanks for bye, jerk. Ban hammer.
Yeah, so it appears that Jimmy Uso is fine. That was Rikishi, which we're going to get to those comments too, and I've got to pull them up. I forgot to pull them up. But Rikishi and Mick Foley both had some sympathetic views towards Vince McMahon earlier this week, and so he was getting a lot of heat, and I think he was just like, let me talk about Jimmy real quick. And then people were like, no, Jimmy's fine. So he was using his kid to get heat off of him, which is not a surprise considering some of the stuff we know about him. But
you know what? That's even worse.
Yeah.
That's gross. Screw you,
it is
dude.
Gross. So as far as we know, Jimmy Uso is perfectly fine, and he'll be back whenever he's ready. But Rikishi was using that to take the heat off of him,
to divert attention away from the fact that he basically was like, oh, Vincent. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I will have you read the comments.
We will,
because that's not
then we can talk about
Sorry,
it.
my lizard brain engaged.
So those comments actually came out first, and we were already going to talk about, or I had already put it on the sheet to talk about our list of notes. It was the very first thing on there, and then Wednesday it came out that Janel Grant's team they're already using one PR firm that they've been using since the lawsuit was filed in January, and then they brought in a new group called SKDK, and they do a variety of different types of PR and communications. They actually do a lot of stuff in politics, but one of their specialties is in women's advocacy, which is why this particular woman, let me get her, I want to make sure I get her name correct. And where did I lose my article? I did, because hang on one second, let me pull that. Oh, you know what, I clicked on the tweet from that to bring up my thread easier and lost my article, so let me pull.
All right, you can pull it back up there. It's
forgive me just 1 second. Yes,
but it was interesting because the reason I did see some of it was just simply because you guys were tagging us and letting us know if we had seen it. So
yes, so Kendra Barkoff-Lamy is I hope I'm pronouncing her last name right. She is the person from SKDK that is representing Grant. She herself, along with SKDK, have represented survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, and Marilyn Manson. They also, when the story came out about Dan Snyder, who was the former owner of the Washington Commanders, and some of the things that he and other people were doing to cheerleaders and other women with the company, SKDK also supported some of those employees in their lawsuit against Dan Snyder as well. So this is kind of their wheelhouse. She could not have brought on a better team for this ahead of, not only, I think it was smart to bring this on ahead of the documentary, because as we've been saying for months, like, most of the focus has mostly been from wrestling media. I mean, there's been some, obviously, Wall Street Journal, Vice, there's been a little bit of outside stuff, but with this documentary coming out and the possibility that he could be indicted between now and the end of the year, a lot of mainstream media outlets are going to start paying attention. And I don't know the original group that she's using. I don't know how large they are as far as what their capabilities can handle with the influx of, because right now they're just mostly dealing with wrestling media, and I'm sure, you know, some other stuff, but for the most part. So I think it was very smart, because once this drops and people like Variety covers them.
Well,
anyways,
Ashley Banfield, Mike and JD made a good point. Ashley Banfield has actually covered this story.
Yeah,
so.
She has covered she covered the Ashley Massaro
story
when it came back up. She was on that. So yeah, it was smart for them to bring in this extra representation. Excuse me. And so then Thursday, they held a press briefing that was only available it was an invite only type of thing. There was fortunately, I had some contact, and then there was just some miscommunication between the original PR group and the current one. And I got left out of the thing, but luckily BJ helped me get in touch with the correct person. Literally got into the press briefing at like, the call started at 2, and I think I got in at like 2:01, and it started like 5 minutes after that. So I got in and I got into the contact, and I made sure before I did anything else, is it okay to live tweet this? And she was like, yes, it's perfectly fine. So it was interesting, because I'm used to live tweeting Tony Khan, who for the most part gives long answers, which gives me chance to, I still have to, I try to do it in real time as I'm listening, and sometimes have to delete things and like rephrase and then I'm like, wait, what did he just say? And like not focus on what he, like, it can be a little bit, but this one moved very, very quickly. And I know that I didn't get, there were more quotes and more things that I probably missed, but I tried to get as accurate as I could, and I think that I did that because I wanted to document what was happening and what was going on. And there were media on there, and they were outside. There was people who are not in wrestling media. There was somebody from The Athletic was covering it. I think there was somebody else from USA Sports, somebody from NBC News was involved. So like this was outside of wrestling media that were involved in this call. And so it was very quick, maybe half an hour. And so the call was with Ann Callis, who is Janelle's her attorney, and then Kendra Barkoff Lammy was also a part of this call. And so they did open the questions, open up for questions. And the first thing that that they wanted to state was to make sure that, it was because Kendra had already put this statement out prior, and then Ann Callis repeated it, because it does bear repeating that Janel Grant is a survivor of incomprehensible abuse, sexual assault, and human trafficking at the hands of Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE. She has courageously come forward to seek justice for herself and other survivors, and we are honored to support her in sharing her story. It takes immense strength to speak out against Goliath, and we encourage all survivors of sexual harassment and human trafficking to seek the support that they need. And so Ann Callis had also put out a statement prior to the call saying that SKDK has a proven track record of uplifting survivors of sexual violence and human trafficking, and we look forward to our partnership in seeking justice on behalf of our client, Janel Grant. And they are still working with the agency group, which is her original PR firm. They are still working with them as well. So she's got a lot of people on her side, which is really nice to see, because we can only imagine the amount of people that Vince has. Vince and John Laurinaitis and
TKO. They have the resources of TKO now, and to whatever degree. And however they're going to support or not support this. I mean, the smart business move would be to distance yourself from this as far as possible.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be able to avoid questions because they have stockholders. And the Wall Street Journal is covering it. And that is going to affect things. And even you and I made a comment earlier, and I started I've been creeping in on the one of my local news stations, knowing full well that one of the anchors is our co-host there is a WWE fan. And I suspect that some of the stuff that we're talking about here with the Mick Foley and Rikishi comments and the poor Vince kind of reactions.
Yeah, I mean, that's been Kevin Nash's whole.
There would be no, and the insane notion that there would be no pro wrestling if Vince McMahon hadn't launched like
Yeah,
Which
from
is
what people have got to stop watching WWE based documentaries, because you can be, when you are the big person with all the big company with all the money, you can rewrite history as much as you want to.
and they have.
And then, but then there are people like Dave Meltzer and other names in wrestling, and there's books. There's Brian Solomon, who've been documenting wrestling for a very long time, who can provide actual historical recounts of what has happened. There's Jim Valley,
Wrestling
who's been covering
Babylon
wrestling.
by Irv Muchnick was the biggest.
Yeah, and
that was like Dark Side before Dark Side. That
Right.
that whole book.
Yeah.
You can take that whole book and enter it into as evidence.
Yeah, and I had actually forgotten about that book, Ringmaster, that's about Vince, but one of my editors is reading it. And so, and another writer picked it up. Her local library has it. And I think somebody said they were downloading it off of Audible so that they could look at it. I'd forgot, I've heard of the book. I've never read it, but I'd forgot all about it until he made that comment. And so, that's a book that's out there.
If you're somebody that wants to get some overview about this, I highly recommend Wrestling Babylon. It's a quick read. It's not an easy read, but it's a quick read, and it's very well written. And because of his voice, it's engaging. His style of writing is an engaging style. So you feel like it's I was shocked at how fast I was rolling through it, just because he's such an engaged writer of how he presents, and he does not hold back. He pulls zero punches. It's a basically I think the Jimmy Snuka stuff, he's just flat out like killing a groupie or something is like the title of the chapter.
Wow.
I mean, it's just like no holds barred. He just flat out calls it what it is right in the first chapter.
In some of these situations you have to be, because when you handle them in the way, I think one of the most probably famous examples of that is Plane Ride from Hell, because it was always told in a joking manner. It was always told as a funny story, because even when WWE had that, they did that animated series on Peacock a few years ago, and then it was like animated stories of animated versions of real stories, and they had like Ric Flair on there. So the story has always been presented as something funny. We didn't have the complete details. We had revisionist history of what happened, and then Dark Side of the Ring comes out with an episode, and they actually talk to the flight attendants who were on this flight and things like that, and then you hear a completely different version of what we've always been told. And so that just shows you how revisionist they are, and they want things to be viewed a certain way. And that's just one example, but that's one of the most recent ones that I can think of. And that the version that had been told for years is completely opposite of what actually happened. And what actually happened was horrendous. And I can understand why.
The saddest part too is that there are more than one plane rides from hell. That I mean, they chose the one that they chose, but that's one of several things that took place over the course of WWE history. They kind of stopped doing private flights with the guys for exactly that reason.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
so this goes back and shows you the decades of things that have been happening leading up to what is currently happening in this lawsuit from Janel. And that actually will bring me to the very first question that was asked, was from Brandon Thurston. And he asked if any other victims were coming forward. And Ann Callis said that they had an influx of people coming forward in the beginning, but because the case has been stayed at the request of the DOJ, no one else has currently come forward, but they have reason to believe that there are more women because of all of the NDAs. And again, these NDAs don't cover people. I mean, of course, there are women who were employed by WWE, but there was the salon owner in Boca Raton, Florida. There is a woman in California as well that was, I believe she worked at tanning, I think it was a tanning booth or something like that. But there's, and her husband tried to get into the venue because he wanted to beat Vince McMahon's ass. So right.
And remember, Yeah, because when he found out what had gone on, he literally got like arrested for trying to assault Vince.
Yeah, they security had to hold him back from getting into the venue to get to Vince McMahon.
I can't say as I blame the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not supposed to. I don't condone taking the law into your own hands. That's not what we do. But I get it.
In some cases, especially
I get it.
Especially when this person keeps getting away with acts of violence towards women, and men. Sounds like
and
acts of violence against
children,
a lot of people.
and it just like it never ends. It's so disgusting.
Yeah, and Brad says ESPN did a documentary about it and handled it as a joke. Right. They did a documentary about the plane ride from hell as well. And they did the segment as a cartoon, and people on Twitter were making jokes of it, and Flair was still being used after that. Right. Which is a pattern of what they do. Then the team says that they have not seen the documentary. They didn't get a pre-screening of it. They were asked again. This has been asked several times, but it was asked again if they were asked to be part of the documentary, and they were. It never came to fruition. But Ann Callis drove home the point several times that Janel deserves to tell her own story in her own words, however she sees fit, and she doesn't have to be part of someone else's story to do that. She has earned her day in court to talk about what happened to her. And I think that is, I think that it's, I agree with her. I don't think that she should have been part of this documentary, especially because at the time we didn't know what Netflix was going to be doing with it, especially now that Raw is involved, and Raw will be airing there in January. And I think it was smart. And I think that Janel does deserve to tell her story when she wants to, how she wants to. And another thing that Ann Callis started out this call with was talking about how Janel is a human. She is a very smart woman. But now, because of what she's been through at the hands of John Laurinaitis, Vince McMahon, WWE, she suffers from suicidal ideation. She cannot leave her home for weeks at a time, which we knew. They've talked about this before, but she drove that point home again. So when you are watching this documentary, keep that in mind, that however they present this, Janel is a human being who is both a victim and a survivor of Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE
and the company.
She deserves to have her story told, which they really drove home throughout this call, was that she deserves justice for what happened to her. She deserves to have her life back. And I can't imagine, you and I have talked about this several times, like after reading the lawsuit, like the courage it takes to admit to yourself that those things happen to you, then to have the courage to tell other people this, and then to go even further to tell a lawyer this, who's, they're going to have questions, that other people are going to have lawyers. People are going to vilify. We've seen it. We saw it in the chat 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, right.
How people were going to react to her and her story. And she still had the courage to come forward and say out loud what happened to her, and that she is still suffering from this many years later. And
sadly, this has only just begun, because our legal system is not an incredibly quick situation. And again, they've got this case stayed because
the DOJ
of federal issues.
Yep.
And
so that was a question that was asked. Janel's lawsuit is stayed through December of this year. And BJ Bethel actually asked, are you frustrated with this process of them taking so long? And Ann said, no, I used to be a judge. I know these things take time, and I would rather them be right than fast.
Yeah.
And I think that is such an important thing to remember.
Like her. I mean, obviously, I read her background. I know she's dead. This is a power lawyer. This gal.
I don't think that, we've talked about this before, I don't think that Janel Grant could have picked a better person to represent her than Ann Callis, because Ann Callis has the background. She has the fortitude to see this out as long as it takes. And I'm sure they weren't planning for the case to have a 6-month stay. And it kind of delayed things.
I don't think that when they file a civil case that you think that all of a sudden there's going to be a federal freaking case.
Right. And
that doesn't usually happen. And there's a lot going on in that area. And we know that these people, like in the Southern District of New York, that court, we know that even some of but the Diddy stuff, there's crossover there, whether people like it or not. Those people run in the same circles.
Also, that's where Harvey Weinstein's case in New York was from, the Southern District of New York. Yep. They are he had his sentence overturned, but they are litigating that. They announced the charges like 2 weeks ago. They are, and right after he was rushed to the hospital in Los Angeles and had to have like emergency surgery, and they indicted him like right around the same time as that. Like, so there's a lot. And somebody asked, like, does the SDNY case with Sean Combs, does that make you think that there's gonna be more movement in the Vince McMahon case? And she was like, probably, it's possible, but we don't know. And she just said, regardless, we hope it happens expeditiously because Janelle deserves her day in court. And so we hope it happens as soon as possible if they are going to charge him. And she also reminded us that there is a civil lawsuit in place as well that they can't do anything with because this case is on hold and they have to wait for the DOJ. So the civil lawsuit also can't move forward. And so they're in the process with how the thing with Dr. Carlin Kolker, who with Peak Wellness, and they're trying to gather information. And both Vince and Dr. Kolker both tried to stop that from them getting information. And Janelle's just trying to access her medical records that she never had access to.
She's legally entitled to, by the way.
Yeah. And the judge sided with her and said, no, you have the right to gather this information even while your lawsuit is on pause for now. And so,
well, that's discovery. It doesn't, I know that they wanted to try and be like, you can't do this because it's straight. That's not how the legal system works, guys.
No. And so she did say, in addition, she just said there has been no update on the SDNY case. If there are charges, they want them to come expeditiously. One person, I heard his name and I was like, I did not expect him to be on the call, but he said his name was Lee Cole, and I knew immediately who that was. His brother, Tom Cole, was one of the Ring Boys.
I was going to ask.
Yes. And I was like, whoa. Because obviously when you're in these situations, you have to say your name and identify what outlet you were with, and Lee didn't. And so Kendra stopped him and she's like, what outlet are you with? And he said, and he named the podcast, and he said, and I'm Tom Cole's brother. Tom was one of the Ring Boys. But I knew his voice because I listened to his podcast. He did a podcast in February because another former Ring Boy came forward with his story of abuse and what happened to him when he was the Ring
Lee's
Boy.
Been really pushing to try and get them justice for a long time. Lee is
the one who pushed Tom to come forward in the first place.
And even the other person who may or may not be named, although, like I said, if you read Wrestling Babylon, you can kind of get an idea of some of the people that were involved in that scandal.
I wrote an article about it in February.
I do give Lee a lot of credit for, that's his brother. And they deserve justice too.
They do. And that was actually Lee's question was like, how he was like, I have people who have asked, said this to me about like, why did you basically like, why did you wait to come forward? And so he asked like, how would Janelle respond, or how would Ann Callis respond to people asking why she would return to WWE if she was being abused in this way? And Ann said, she's a victim of abuse. She was coerced and human trafficked and felt she had no choice. And then there were people who worked with WWE who told her they were aware of her relationship with Vince and she was met with hostility from these people. So she had nowhere to turn. He literally, as we're seeing with this stuff with Dr. Carlin Colker, if we are to believe what's coming out from this, he had control. That's how much control he had over her life, is that he controlled which doctor she saw, and he was getting information from that doctor about what she was being given, and she was not even being given that information. She was given IV drips, she was given pills and supplements, and when she questioned what they were, the doctor would tell her that if you don't trust me, then we have much bigger problems. And
which is a threat.
Right.
That's a threat. If a doctor says that, if anyone says something like that to you in that freaking tone, that's a threat. So why did she go back? Because she was being perpetually threatened.
And she was being
being
abused by multiple people. She was being trafficked. It's not as simple as, and so somebody and then you see these comments from people like Mark Henry, who said a few months ago, oh, well, it wasn't a problem until the money ran out, which is the most bootlicker thing, one of the most bootlicker things that you can say.
Yeah,
I mean, besides being just horrendous to say that to a victim of abuse, but that's just bootlicker mentality. It's and which we see a lot from these wrestlers, which we will get to in just when we get to these other comments that were made. And then so there was let me see, I think I covered most of what I wanted to say, but this is the point that really sticks with me. I know it's only been 4 or 5 days, but this is the comment that I keep going back to. Micro asked how Janel Grant has been portrayed in the press, and Ann Callis says Janel Grant, and are basically how we can do a better job of how the media portrays her. She said Janel Grant is a human. She deserves justice. She is a victim and a survivor. She is not a storyline, which tells me they know damn well that storyline, and why and people still tried to argue anytime any of us brought that up, that that stuff that was going on with Liv and that Liv Morgan storyline from the end of July, and we had the discussion about the entire episode. That tells me that I don't know that Janelle is aware of it or saw it, but that tells me that Ann Callis saw it and she knows about that. That tells me that SKDK knows about it. That tells me the agency group knows about it. And other people that are supporting Janelle and part of her team are aware that WWE, even though Paul Levesque says he's never read the lawsuit, it's very obvious that he has, because of the way they made that episode with Liv was basically them playing out Janelle.
They're trying to make
wrestling fans see it.
Hate her.
Yeah.
Detest her. To make her look like a word I'm not going to say. Like, that's what they're doing, though. That's how propaganda works, and that's exactly
that's
what they do. That's what they've always done.
On brand for what they have always done.
Yes, Megan. They are all bootlickers.
This is how we go back to Trish Stratus being put on all fours and barking like a dog. The way that he would treat even Ashley Massaro on TV when she wouldn't do certain things. How they have treated other women who have reportedly rejected his advances, and the way that he portrayed, and not only that, the way he portrayed women in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and how they were sexualized, or if him or other writers didn't find them attractive enough, how they were presented in comparison to other women. So this has been, I mean, they prove it on there's decades of proof on the way they think, how they think of women, and how
right
they
on the TVs.
them.
I watched
and so
it.
They did it again, and it was appalling to watch this in real time. Like, as soon as I realized what was happening, like I was so angry as it was happening. But we had the conversation, like in the group that I was watching it with, we had a conversation in real time of what was happening, and they all saw it too. Like, it wasn't just me, like no, I see it, like I get it. This is,
how about this? I read about it the next day, what they were doing, and went, are you joking? Like, I had a double take on that. I'm like, and even them, I mean, it's like, I know that there's no such thing as too low for them, but wow. I mean, and I really want to sort of like underscore and bring it back to the thing that Diane Callis kept making the point of, and that you made the point of in your, following the story, is that Janel deserves to tell Janel's story, period.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Nobody else. So,
right.
And that's whatever. They can enter that, like I've said this the whole time, that's admissible.
Yeah.
So and you better believe if she's making a case. I mean, this gal knows what she's doing, and she's on it. Because I mean, again, they know, they're watching, they're paying attention to what WWE is doing, they're paying attention to what's going on,
and they're paying
obviously
attention to the people. And I'm not saying this because I'm covering it, but there are people who are covering it and pointing this stuff out, so they know. Like, there is written document. Like, of course, you can go back and watch the episode yourself, but there's written documentation. There's conversations on podcasts. There, people are. I mean, it was very small. It felt like at first I didn't see a lot of people talking about it, and then I started seeing more people talking about it, and so it felt like it was fine. And then there are still people who were trying to argue, and they were like, "No, that's not what is happening. It's the story with Liv, and they're doing." No, that's the point. They are mixing it in. They are blurring this so that you think, no, that's not what this is. It's going along with what Vince and with what Liv Morgan is doing to Rhea Ripley by using Dom. But that's the point.
They're changing the jury pool is what they're freaking doing.
They are trying to use their medium to make people question Janel Grant and her lawsuit. And they are like, oh, well, see, if this happens here with Liv Morgan, she's the attractive blonde who is using her sexuality and using her body and stuff like this. And so that means that that's what Janel did. And that's exactly what they're doing, is they're trying to make people, especially for people who are not as online as a lot of us are, who are not on social media regularly and only hear about the cases from here and there. Then, because like we saw it when Vince McMahon was retired, and then he came back, and him and Stephanie came out on TV, and people were chanting, "Thank you, Vince," and they were like treating him like he was like the greatest thing. Like, that was all for his ego. But that just shows you, like, there are people in that arena, they knew, they read it, and they didn't care. But then there are people in that arena who are not super online like the rest of us, or a lot of us. And so that plays into, they're like, oh, well, he's here, so it must not be that bad. Or there's the people now whose argument is, well, John Laurinaitis is gone and Vince is gone, problem solved. No, WWE is still named in that lawsuit. Nick Khan is reportedly corporate officer number 1. Stephanie McMahon is reportedly corporate officer number 3, and she keeps showing up, hanging out at pay-per-views and hanging out backstage. So, like, and
they won't give straight answers as to what her role in the company is right now at all.
No, he keeps saying that she's not, and the thing was, like, Triple H Paul Levesque said, well, she lost a lot of her joy the last few years. Well, why? Why did she lose her joy the last couple of years? Who is the reason why that happened?
Well, whose fault is that?
Yes. Why does Shane McMahon not want to work with you? Why was Shane McMahon seen with your rival's CEO? Why hasn't, if Vince is gone and that was the whole problem, why won't Shane McMahon come back to work for WWE? Like, these are questions that need to be asked. And these are questions that should be asked in these pressers, which we've talked about. And again, if they can't handle, and then, Cody gave a okay answer, and then it completely fell apart at the end. And so if you can't handle wrestling media asking you questions,
get ready.
Then
No,
yeah. I
they
mean,
have
no,
no.
it,
I
it's
mean, I think the
seriously,
one
it's
thing that
just-
is we're gonna see a lot of here, and I mean, maybe it'll work to their advantage hugely. But I mean, these people have like because they are living in kayfabe, they have no idea what they're about to face.
yeah, you and I have had that. We've pointed that out many times. That they
mean-
don't seem to understand the severity of what is happening. They are
Well, and they're already being covered
and
by
I get
two
it.
major news. You've got Ashley Banfield and the Wall Street freaking Journal.
And you had Vice when Vice was still, you had them like right on their heels, and he's apparently, I could just blanked on what his name is. The reporter from Vice, he was doing really great work, and I completely blanked on his name. But I think he had something else kind of lined up because he knew he was not going to be with Vice anymore. But as far as I believe, he's still following the case and working on stuff, or following the Ashley Massaro stuff, because that was kind of some of the last things that he was reporting on was about Ashley Massaro.
Oh.
So there are people who are involved, and I mean, it's the freaking Department of Justice. It is the SDNY. Like they've gone after Harvey Weinstein. They're doing it again. There's obviously, we've saw what happened with Sean Combs. That's huge. Sean Combs may not be the only one. There may be some others. Been rumors that there's stuff's going to come out on some other people. So like, it's something that should be taken very seriously, and they don't seem to take it that way because, and I get it, like Vince has gotten away with so many things for decades, so they probably are like, more publicity for us.
The affluenza factor is high here, I think. I think it's pretty much peak affluenza when it comes to Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just don't, I think seriously, I think even their like legal team or something thinks that like, which is fine, honestly, because at the end of the day, like for better or worse, them going out and embarrassing themselves and looking like a bunch of a-holes is really going to help their case.
Mm-hmm. Keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, and Venkin brings this up. There was a tweet of Vince talking about partying with Diddy in 2013.
There's pictures also, that's the thing. These people run in the same circles. That's what something
from Hootsuite. And it was at an event, and the picture, and it's funny because I saw that picture earlier in the day because there was a picture that somebody tweeted, and it was of Diddy and Triple H and it was just the shot was very interesting. And so I went to look to see if it was a real image. And when I was looking for that image, the one that's in that 2013 tweet came up as too. And so it's a picture. It's Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Paul Levesque, Vince McMahon, and The Rock. I mean, Diddy, Sean Combs, and The Rock. We're all in this picture together. And apparently it was at some event because the hashtag was like Sandy something. So it was at some kind of, I don't know if that was after Hurricane Sandy had hit and they were doing some kind of benefit thing for it. But they were there together. There's photos of them. But then the picture that I saw of Diddy and Triple H is real. It's the thumbnail of a video that Diddy put up on his YouTube 8 years ago. And it was like Diddy's day at WWE or whatever it was. And so it's there. It was a real photo, just like this was a real photo. And you see these ties, and then
and they move really fast
because
so
I mean, there's obviously Vince and Trump are friends. There's photos of Trump and Weinstein.
Yep, that was my next
there's
there's
Trump and Weinstein, there's Trump and Diddy, there's Elon Musk and Trump and stuff. So like it's just these dots that can be connected.
Well, and also let's be real. Like these people represent a very, very, very tiny portion of the population. So when they're partying or having fundraisers, they're doing them in this tight group here. So, and anybody who's read any book ever about how these things interact, even a fiction one about politics and hierarchy and aristocracy and all kinds of things, you can kind of pretty much work it out. Like these people don't commingle and go, I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah. Please. Oh, it's funny because briefly bringing it back to the Mark Robinson thing, all these local GOP people were deleting photos with him or
Of
saying,
course.
oh, I didn't really know him. Like there's one woman, I forget what county she represented. And she was like, I don't really keep up with him, but she's done 2 events with him as recently as this year. So,
Guys,
and there's somebody had like campaign buttons with him. Like
I
it's
love that
really,
they
so,
think that they
and
can
people were
scrub their
asking them, they're
accounts
like,
of
why
this
are you
stuff.
deleting these pictures? And so people were going and they were screenshotting them because they were like, they're going to start deleting them. And that's exactly what was happening. There
Well,
were mass deletions and them immediately distancing themselves. They're saying, I didn't know them.
I love the hive mind for sometimes I hate the hive mind, but sometimes I really love the hive mind because they know these people are going to go scrub their social. So
Right.
let's get this on screenshot. Or just smart people, which I need to get better at, is if you see something like that, screenshot it immediately in case they pull it down.
Right. Yes. Brad's right. Anytime something new breaks with a lawsuit, WWE is always ahead of it. Make sure an announcement to control the media and the response. Which again, I have brought up many times. They're always a very much look over here, not over here.
Definitely.
I mean, they are definitely. I mean, they did that with. And I know it's one of the more recent ones that I can think of, but it came out that Vince was involved in, another NDA, and the next day they fired Mandy Rose, and so. And then it became, well, why did they fire Mandy Rose? And then it became the whole thing of her own, not the OnlyFans, but the website that was kind of basically only a version, a type of website like OnlyFans, but it was through her as a subscription service on her own website. And but then that became that conversation. But then it also brought it back to look at the way, how WWE controls their wrestlers and what they put out, but then also women and how they have these standards. And so it was just this whole conversation. And they tried to distance it, and so you wouldn't look at Vince. But then in reality, when you look at the big picture, it ties right back to Vince and the things that he's been accused of for decades. And there was but
same general wheelhouse here, abusing women and horrible and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Bruce Pritchard, he could have definitely read that lawsuit and came up with that damn storyline. And Vinkin says, don't forget, some of these WWE fans will praise Vince for inventing wrestling, which he didn't, which we keep seeing. I mean, that was a whole conversation a few days ago, was if it weren't for Vince McMahon, wrestling would be dead. And people were like, y'all weren't paying attention to wrestling.
Even Dave Meltzer this week took it upon himself to have an individual tweet of anybody out there, essentially, I'm like paraphrasing, but essentially anybody out there who thinks that wrestling wouldn't have gone anywhere without Vince McMahon is lying to themselves.
Right.
They're just, and I'm like, he just, in a freaking, like, one tweet was like, that's BS. Like, if you think that, then I got a bridge to tell you, as they say.
Right.
Get out of here with that.
Yeah, let me see if I'm trying to find, I found another article talking about, because I want to get to the McFoley Rikishi comments. I will lead into
are we gonna read those comments?
let me pull it up directly from where I saw it the first time. I think that would be the best thing. So let me pull.
And the only reason I ask is because I don't want to paraphrase them, and also I think it's important that hearing those responses, that's what you're going to get from people.
I sent that when I saw that article from Post Wrestling, I sent it to the group chat, and somebody was like, is that that's a credible website, right? And I was like, yes, Post Wrestling, that's John Pollock's website. And the person who did the transcription, that's, I don't want to say what he's known for, but that's a lot of what he works on. So he's not going to make it, he's not going to leave quotes out to make it sound a certain way. He basically wrote what he wrote. And so this is the original article that I saw. I think this was Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday is the date on this. So there was a Comic-Con in Northern Ireland, and it was centered around Hall of Famers McFoley and Rikishi. There was a Q&A, and both panelists were asked about the upcoming Mr. McMahon docuseries. And so Mick Foley said, so one of the kind of baffling things, and I think it's in this quote, was Mick Foley said that he's been looking for an address to send a letter to Vince McMahon to thank him for everything he's done in his career for him. Which goes back to what we talk about of a lot of these wrestlers who are defending him are very much of, well, if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, I wouldn't have a job. If it wasn't for Vince McMahon, I wouldn't have this money. If it wasn't for Vince McMahon, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. If it weren't for Vince, if it weren't for Vince, it's that very much of a, we can't think, or because some people were like, well, maybe that's because they're on the payroll, which I'm sure that brings in some hesitation, but like Brad pointed out, Bret Hart's still involved, and he's always said what he thinks about Vince McMahon. He went as so far as to say that he ran into Rita Chatterton
and apologized
and told her that he was wrong and he was sorry for the things that he had previously said and how he treated her, and that he does believe her and he is sorry for what he did. And that is massive for him to have done that to her directly, and then to have shared that publicly with that. So
yeah, right. He didn't even have to he essentially owned up to everybody.
Yeah. And not to, first he did it with Rita herself and directly to her,
which is the way it should have gone.
Right, is huge. But then he even was like, because people were bringing that up about how he publicly said stuff about Rita Chatterton and basically called her a liar. And then he was like, I was wrong. And I said some horrible things, and I am so sorry that I did that to you, which is massive. So I get, for some people, sure, there probably is the paycheck and because they're doing these new nostalgia deals, which are basically Legends deals. So it gives them their right to be in video games and make merch and things like that. And then you have Mark Henry, whose son is on one of the NIL deals, and he's left AEW. And he's constantly talking. He seems like he's always got some shit to say about AEW. He did it with, there was a thing with him and Bryce Remsburg a week and a half ago. But he is very much, he said some pretty awful things about Janel, and kind of along the lines of what Kevin Nash said. But yeah, so I will read you this quote from Mick Foley. So, I genuinely liked him, talking about Vince. My relationship was never the same with him after I left WWE and went to TNA for 3 years. But to this day, I'm still trying to find an address to write to him just to thank him, for taking a chance on me. I think all of us are a combination of good traits and bad traits. And you hope your good traits outweigh your bad traits. And it seems perhaps that Vince got it backwards there for a little while. Let me finish reading before yeah. Just... yeah.
I read it once before, but just hearing it out loud again.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I'm saying,
really honestly, when I read it made me sad because I was like, well, there goes another one.
Yeah, he said, I've been there when he's done good things. I've seen him do good things. When I was writing books, I wanted to essentially do something like Chicken Soup for Wrestling Fans Soul about some of these real heartwarming moments. And he was like, Mick, I'm afraid that would come across as self-serving. So he was someone that did the right thing for the right reasons a lot of the time. I feel really bad that someone I care about got in something that seems pretty unsavory. I'm going to hold off on judgment until I see but I think, and he was referencing the documentary, but I think one thing that's fortunate is whatever he did or did not do, I don't think many of us are allowing that mess allowing that to mess with our memories. He was instrumental in creating some of those memories, so I'm choosing to appreciate him until I learn more about what may have gone down. Mick Foley, the lawsuit is available publicly. I read all 63 pages. You can too. Just like Paul Levesque can read it. Bruce Pritchard can read it. WWE writers can read it. Mel read it. That was my response when there were other responses, but that was my main thing was granted, I have somebody who has told me they've seen the documentary, but what if the documentary was favorable to him? What if they lied and left out a bunch of shit because it makes Vince look bad? So you're going to believe that documentary because you've seen him do some good things? Both things can be true. He can do
I'm
good things
sure
and
that,
still be a
like-
horrible human being.
I'm sure
Like-
Ted Kaczynski did a nice thing or two here and there, but like, or you know, I mean, Jeffrey
Yeah, I mean,
Dahmer
you
was
had-
said to have been an incredibly charismatic and pleasant person. Guys, seriously, Mick, do better.
I think what was even more disappointing from it coming from Mick, obviously, Mick is generally a person who is well loved in the wrestling community.
Yeah,
So that in itself was, he has been an advocate of RAIN for years. If you are not familiar with RAIN, that is the Rape and Incest Network. That helps survivors of abuse.
That kind of stuff.
He has raised money for them. He has been part of events for them. So why can't you, if you can believe these people, why can't you believe Janelle? Because
God, if I was a member of that organization, I would.
You know her abuser, so you can't possibly believe her.
If I was a member of that organization, having heard those comments, I would be very much questioning my association with him at that point.
Yeah, you would have to. And I know some people are going to say, and I'm not saying for you to hear these comments and completely write Mick Foley off.
No, you make your own decision.
But it was just so disappointing to
very
hear.
Disappointing. My opinion is that sucks because that's somebody that I really looked up to in the wrestling community, and now it makes me question that.
Right.
And I don't like it.
And to say like he lost his way, that's abusing someone in the workplace is not losing your way. Like that's losing your way is
I stole something from a grocery store because I was desperate for food. I mean, that's not even really losing your way, but
right. But I mean, losing your way is so far removed from
where we are,
what he has done, and it's not just Janelle. That's the thing.
Yeah,
like there's NDAs to prove that there has been multiple women. Rita Chatterton, we were just talking about the stuff with him helping cover up the Jimmy Snuka stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And again, these are just what we know about.
Right.
There's Ashley Massaro and all the things that happen with her. Like there's so much stuff. And for you to say, well, sometimes we're all good and bad, and sometimes that we lose our way a little bit.
Trafficking a woman across lines is not losing your way.
Yeah, and if that's the case, he's been losing his way for a very long time. For decades.
They have been lost from the start.
Yeah, and I know they're on a panel, and you have to say something, but like you could say nothing. You could say, I thought
Lady B did did an excellent thread about what kinds of actual answers you could give instead of giving these kinds of answers. And I thought that was an excellent thread. You should seek that out. I think both of us retweeted it.
I think I quote tweeted it from our account. From my account. I can't remember if I went back and did it from the Powerbombshells account.
You might have.
And then I know that Mel has, she retweeted it as well. But yeah, Lady B has, it's very general. I mean, it's not the greatest response, but it's better than that.
Way better than what they're doing right now.
And so
actually it was kind of cute because she was essentially saying what we've been saying the whole time, which is here's a guide to dealing with the real media that you're about to face.
Right. Just say, I would have rather him said, I haven't taken the time to read the lawsuit because Vince is somebody I know personally, and I don't know that I could handle reading what's in the lawsuit or something or to say, I know that the lawsuit's out there. I know there's a documentary coming. I haven't had the time to look and it's been 9 months now, but you could still saying that would have, even though that's not great, saying that is better than I'm trying to find an address to thank Vince McMahon for everything he's done for me. And just what are we doing here? So then Rikishi, also on this panel, asked the same question, said, I have nothing but respect for the McMahons, and when I say McMahons, I say all of them. What's happening with him now, as far as with the Netflix, I'll make a decision when that comes out. But for now, I always believe in people having a second chance in life. There's nobody in this arena or up here that's perfect. We're never perfect. It's not made like that in this world for us. There's always speed bumps for us to be able to learn from one another, each one teach one. And so at the end of the day, like Mick, I would like to keep my happy memories of the McMahons, what they've done. They've really taken wrestling to another level. It's a reason why we're all here, reason why you guys are listening to our stories. And they also have really, really taken care of a lot of professional wrestlers, their families, their kids. So let's think about how far this man has reached out to everyone to be able to give them the lifestyle that possibly some of us could never achieve. So I want to thank them. I want to thank you fans, especially because without you coming to watch us, there is no us. What value do we have? So we thank you for helping us take care of our family, helping us to do what we love, and know that the respect is given back to you. So then that's why, because he took a lot of heat off that's why he's like, pray for Jimmy the next day.
Well,
literally the very next day.
What a just immediate show of, like, you make that response, and then when you take heat for it, you deflect right to your own kid,
which is not, from what I understand, is not out of character for him. He frequently does that. And people have said, because I didn't watch, I wasn't somebody who watched Total Divas, but I've heard people talk about like what happened with Naomi and Jimmy when they were getting married, and how like he didn't come to the wedding, and he was like, oh, I have a show or something. Like he made some excuse about not being there. And so people were already saying, that Rikishi doesn't come off as the greatest dad. So then for him to come out the next day and be like, pray for my kid, it's right at literally the day after these comments surface. That's why I immediately, when I saw that, I was like, oh, when I saw the confirmation that Jimmy is in fact fine, I was like, oh, that's a deflection from yesterday. He wants people to be worried about that he's a caring father, not about him being a WWE bootlicker.
Being a Vince apologist, essentially.
Right.
And a WWE apologist, because remember, as we always remind everyone, the entire company is also named in this lawsuit. This is not just Vince. It's everybody it's WWE.
Right. And Brad has this. Rikishi is related to Snuka by marriage, so of course he respects Vince. He helped cover up the murder Snuka did.
That's right. I was thinking in my head, I was like, I think there's relationships here.
Yeah.
Because I know that a lot of the Hanoi and other, like Jimmy Snuka, and because someone here was related to them all. I'm losing it right now. But anyway, yes, there's connections to here in the local area with that family as well. So
gotcha. Well, I live in Flair country, so
right,
so I'm very well aware. And Nikki points out, if it weren't for Vince, Janelle and others wouldn't have the trauma that they have.
Amen, sister. I read that comment and was like, I hope Sam's putting that one up.
Yes,
there.
I will. I was gonna get to it because I saw it, and that's
like
exactly
Nikki just
right.
nailed it right there. She's absolutely right.
Yep, they do. Yeah, it does kind of come back to that type of stuff. And then Brad said he ran to Wikipedia to make sure he had that right. Yeah, their marriages and bloodlines are kind of confusing.
Oh no, it's crazy. The idea of the bloodline is actually pretty funny, just simply because there are, and I'm trying to remember who it was here, that it might have been the Sheik, but I don't think it was the Sheik.
And they did they did the during the bloodline story, they did the family tree, and so they are not technically blood relatives, but in their culture they are relatives because of the oath that they took. So it's and so that's in their culture, they are recognized as family. But when you look at the way that most of us talk about families and things like that, they are not technically related in certain ways. And so it's really interesting to see how far and wide that goes. And then there's apparently Rikishi has that we know of has 7 children. And so people keep coming. They're like, well, how many kids does he have? Because it'll be like, my child so-and-so. And we're like, where did this, like, who is this child? And so apparently, I think it was somebody said they went to Wikipedia and they have Rikishi as having 7 children. And then, like, I think Jacob Fatu has 7 children, I think is what he said. And I think he has, if I'm not mistaken, he has all girls or mostly girls. I can't remember off the top of my head. I saw a video. Jacob was talking about how he's like basically in a house full of women and he loves it. And he was like, sounds like he takes feminist hands points and things like that. So it's really interesting. Yeah. And Brad says somehow Samoa Joe is the only Samoan that's like not related to anybody.
Look at him, I guess.
Which in that group, and it's funny because there was a joke about the Samoan Josephs because obviously Samoa Joe and then Roman Reigns' real name is Joseph, and so he is also Samoa Joe technically. So there's so that's what's happening there with all of that with these. I'm sure there will be more comments next week because this documentary is out on Wednesday. I'm sure the grifters are gonna be grifting and the Vince apologists are gonna be out, and they already started. We saw it.
Oh, they've got the campaign is on. I mean, this right here just proves it. The campaign is on.
I think we talked about it on the show last week. They already had Conan, Disco Inferno, and Conrad on the podcast talking about they did not have a screener. They were basing it off the trailer and some of the information that had leaked out, and they were like, oh, I can't believe
they're laying the groundwork for what they want people to think. They're laying the groundwork for the indoctrination that the fans need to feel when this actually hits. And I think it's really interesting because what if it's not? Yeah, I mean, it should go hard, and if it does go hard,
that's been my thing. Is like, what if? And I was like, because then all these grifters are going to be like, see, and these Vince apologists are going to be like, we told you so. No.
But see, I don't agree with that. I think because people, especially these kinds of people, are so unable to admit that they are wrong that they will tie themselves in knots to justify the behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
Before they allow themselves to say, I was wrong and I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what Bret Hart did is a brave thing. It's the right thing. But it's something that doesn't happen much.
It's I would say it's very rare.
Usually, people in that situation are going to double down on... Mm-hmm. I mean, we've seen it in politics, we see it in the WWE, we see it in all of these things.
Well, and then what's going to happen if former
brainwashed is right?
The former WWE employees that currently work for AEW say anything like Vince was awful, this documentary made me see Vince in a different light, anything like that, they're just brainwashed by Tony Khan. They're already going to try to discredit, or if it. Because
Brian you and I could write a mock answer to every single freaking thing.
Brian Danielson, his original response was not great, but then as he's talked to his wife and her sister and his mother-in-law, he kind of changed his opinion and he had a response that centered on the victims and was like, whatever I feel is not nearly as important as what happened to them. And so we had that, and so. We may have some more of that. My initial reaction was this can't be true, or I don't have all the facts, but now that I have more facts, so there may be a few people who I'm not holding my breath for that to happen. But there is going to be, it's going to be, they work for AEW now. And so of course they're going to trash WWE.
Right.
Is what it's going to be.
That's and easy deflection. There's a million ways.
Yeah, and the Hardys, I love them. I love Matt Hardy. Listen to Matt's podcast. Matt is somebody that is typically pretty even in his responses about the company. Little concerned about what Matt might say, just because, Vince was horrible to him multiple times. And I don't want to say that he apologizes for him. He's fairly like, he will say, you know, Vince did these things to me, but then sometimes he will not maybe go in as hard as he probably should. And so I don't know that he's necessarily the person to say that. I mean, I guess it depends on his response and what he says, but I would like to see, I mean, you've got, and then, you know, if Jeff Jarrett were to say something, they're gonna be like, oh, well, that's because Jeff Jarrett, you know, used to own TNA and now he's in AEW, and like it's gonna turn, you know, it'll turn into that thing.
I think we all know a lot of the. I mean, I think it's pretty easy to predict what the answers are going to be.
Like if it's Shelton Benjamin or Bobby Lashley or MVP, oh, they're bitter because they're not, WWE didn't resign them. Right. Or if Dolph Ziggler, who's the current TNA champion, if he were to say anything against Vince, oh, he's bitter because Vince didn't believe in him and they never pushed him, and now he's champion at TNA, so of course he's going to say, like, we can see how these answers are going to go with a lot of these people. And they're going to get even from the, and then
as original as the internet thinks it isn't.
Yeah.
You're not.
Right. I mean, and there are some people who, I mean, that's what of course, Matt Hardy's record's not clean, but there were people who will look to him because he was there for so long. He's worked for all three companies. He left WWE, was in TNA for a while, went back to WWE, went to AEW, is now back in TNA. So he is one of the few people who has worked for all three companies. So for some people, that carries more weight because they have been employed by all three of these companies before. And so he has a perspective that certain wrestlers don't have because they didn't work for all of these companies. But no, of course his record's not clean, and I'm not saying that at all. But so I think some people, not all, of course, because there are certain people who I don't care about their opinions either. So I get it. But yeah, so I can only imagine what type of comments are going to come out over the next week. And so,
I mean, again, the best part about any of the bad things, that if somebody says something stupid or does something stupid, or they start making like bananas storylines out of these things or whatever, that's all admissible though. So once the court case goes, I mean, it's still gonna happen.
Right.
I mean, go ahead and make Anne's case for her. It'll just help her out and make her job. And her paralegals will be very, very thankful that you made their job so easy.
Yeah.
I just don't know about this. It's what I really don't. I mean, more than anything, notwithstanding the obvious victimization of these women and of Janel, all of it is gonna really just, it's one of those things where you're gonna have to go, these guys suck.
Yeah.
You have to admit to yourself, you're gonna have to admit it to the world, you're gonna have to accept it. You can still derive the joy you derived from the thing back in the day, because that's fine, but you cannot continue to excuse the behavior once it's been like laid bare.
Just because it's out there. I mean, and I learned that through Speaking Out. Speaking Out taught me that a lot of my favorites were pretty shitty.
I mean, look at America's, awful. I mean, I don't want to get into these things, but we can go so far as the America's Favorite Dad and all of those things. I mean, it's
right.
And I mean, my friends and I talk about this a lot because H.P. Lovecraft is a particular favorite of some of us. But that guy was a racist. He was a misogynist. He was a POS. You can still read H.P. Lovecraft stories, but you at least have to acknowledge what kind of person H.P. Lovecraft was. The reason you read his stories is so that you, just like reading things like, I don't know, Huck Finn, for example. You read that stuff so we don't repeat that shit behavior.
Right.
So that we don't victimize each other like that. You read those things because you need to learn that that's out there and it's happened and that we need to be better. And by denying and essentially supporting a person that's accused of such horrendous things, that doesn't make our communities better. And it certainly doesn't send a good message, as these gentlemen happen to have daughters. And that's not a good message to send to your daughters or your wives.
It's not a good job. It's not a good thing to send to any of your children because you don't want want
and
your
then you
son
don't want your little
perpetuating.
boys acting that way
That's what I'm
either.
saying. You
You
don't
should
want,
be teaching
and
your
that's
little
not
boys
also
to
to
be
say
men.
obviously boys and men can be victims too, and so you don't
Absolutely.
want them to
Well,
also
they
think.
in WWE they have been victimized. We
Mhm.
cannot discard the fact that there have been young boys. It's there.
Yep.
Legal.
I mean, Lee talked about it. I wrote an article about Lee's interview with this former ring
that
boy.
story's awful. It's downright
It's
awful.
Horrendous, and
And
these
it's right there
people,
to be read,
the
right? And like
people
I
that
said,
are these people who are alive should be under the jail. They should be
under it.
launched into a jail on the sun.
Agreed. We're gonna have to hard agree on that one. Yep.
So we're going to completely switch gears now. Go the complete opposite direction. We're going to go to.
Well, we had to get that stuff out of the way again.
We
I think you and I have talked about this too, and just to put a kind of pin in it is that it's important, and we need to keep it out there. And there's only so many people that are talking about it, and the amount of talk that they're doing is very peripheral.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised from my thread about the live tweet got a ton of reaction, and it was all positive. I had 3 women thank me for covering it, which was
awesome.
An interesting, which I appreciate, but it felt weird saying you're welcome because I am just trying to keep Janel in the forefront and to remind people that, as Ann Callis was doing, Janel is a human being. She is both a victim and a survivor. She is not a storyline. And I think that it's important to, and because I was given access to be able to cover that, there are not many women covering this. Unfortunately, there are some women who just either, for whatever, because of the type of content they put out, that's just not something that they touch. Or they aren't comfortable with. Maybe they have their own trauma. There's a variety of reasons why women are not covering this story when women need to be covering this story. So
well, women aren't being talked to by some of the major media.
Well, that too. You go, like, of course, I get people going to people like Dave Meltzer. He's a historian, has been here for a very long time. He's been sounding the alarm for a very long time.
I would say this is that the one thing that I do think in some ways is that I found that there was I heard a lot of guilt in Dave's voice, especially when he was talking about and when he wrote about Ashley Massaro and that case. Almost like I didn't like he. Almost like I didn't ask the right questions and I didn't write the right stories and I didn't I got sort of that vibe, and I mean appreciate the fact that he's at least coming to terms with that and acknowledging that. I hope that he can expand on that and potentially like bringing on someone like Medusa to talk about this would be the absolute worst thing you could do. She totally pissed on the survivors of speaking out.
Oh yeah, she did. Yeah,
I had to turn that. That is the one and only time I have ever turned a Dave and Garrett interview off.
Yeah.
So
I have not heard the interview, but I have heard about the interview, and that's unfortunate. They need to talk to.
That's my point is like, please don't do that. Because that is the literal worst thing.
Yeah. You don't have to have her on there for the sake of having a woman on there.
It's like if Mae Young were alive, we could interview her. No,
there's Moolah too, and like there was a conversation that was happening last night. Was like, if you could get rid of one person from wrestling history, who would it be? And Vince is the overwhelming response, but then Moolah is a very close second because she was horrible. She did some terrible things to women, and probably had terrible things done to her as well. She was unfortunately probably perpetuating things that happened to her, which doesn't make it right and is not an excuse.
What is it? The Princeton study?
But you can see where that cycle continued. And she did some very awful things. And
she laid the groundwork, unfortunately, for a lot of the way that women are treated in wrestling in North America. And
agreed. That she held women's wrestling back a ton.
A ton.
And that's an understatement, I would say.
Boy, howdy. But we don't have a podcast long enough, and we'd be here for 6 hours. They'd be like, guys, the night game is starting. Get the F off of here. Garrett'd be like,
Garrett's gonna be like, Garrett's like,
too.
yeah, I was like, Garrett's like, I gotta do my Niners podcast. Shut the fuck up.
He's like, I agree with you, but I need to do the Niners. Go Hawks.
All right, so we really will switch gears now on that note.
We really will.
We're gonna switch our focus to AEW. Grand Slam is coming up. So even though it's obviously not a pay-per-view, it is still a pretty big deal. It has been. They've treated it as a big deal from the beginning. It was at Arthur Ashe Stadium. And even though there will be a Grand Slam in February in Australia, when Tony was asked about it on the media call, if that meant that the September Grand Slam was going away, he was like, no. Well, he didn't really say yes or no. He just said Arthur Ashe is really important to them. And it kind of the way he worded it sounded like Grand Slam will still be at Arthur Ashe every September. This is just a special event that they are doing in Australia. So whether that turns out to be something they do biannually, it seems like, but who knows what the logistics are once they actually do one in Australia, do one in September. Maybe they refocus and be like, you know what, let's just do one. So as of now, this does not appear to be the last one at Grand Slam. It appears that there will be multiple, and they are filming, which is what they've done the last couple of times. They are filming Rampage right after, so Rampage will also be great. It'll be Grand Slam because it's like Grand Slam or AEW Dynamite Grand Slam. It will also be AEW Rampage Grand Slam, and then Collision is live elsewhere. I forget where they're at next week. Brad said that as someone who lives minutes from Arthur Ashe, if he wants me back at the show, lower the damn prices. Yeah,
that has been actually that very issue. It has been a huge thing that people like in the sort of mainstream wrestling circles are not talking about as much as they should be.
Yeah.
Well, when Lisa was on, we had Lisa on, and she talked about Wembley and how those had doubled and tripled in price.
Right.
You've got Ticketmaster doing something which is essentially legalized price gouging. Which is,
and I don't know if
people are on the actual site buying tickets. They are price manipulating because it's popular.
That's way. I mean,
how is that legal?
I used to go to concerts all the time, and that's why I quit going. Is because of the constant price gouging, and it was cheaper for me.
Pricing,
right? It was cheaper for me to go to my local wrestling show every month than to put money into an artist. And so,
Powerbomb.
I will get to Brad's comment in a minute, but that threw me off of where I was going with this. But yeah, so the problem, and I still can't believe that I got Revolution price tickets as cheap as I did. I did know to turn people had told me to turn off all the filters so that it would cut out the dynamic pricing. And so that's why I try to tell other people to try that and see if it helps. I don't know if that necessarily always works, but I got pretty decent seats for $175 for a pay-per-view. Not $175, $75 is what I paid for. And I was in section 100 sections, and I got to see Sting retire. So it was, right. But a lot of these prices are out of control. And then the conversation is happening with WWE. They are going to these other countries, and because they go there so they're like less frequently now, they're jacking up the prices, and they're pricing people out these events that come around once a year. And they're talking about now next year they're going to start doing less house shows, and they're going to do like 200 shows a year, which is a big drop for them. And so, and it could if they're dropping already, I can imagine they're going to drop even further, because they were talking about how basically their point was house shows were outdated because they did it at a time when they were only on, they were only on certain networks and things like that. And so they're like, oh, well, basically what it is they don't want to pay the talent is what it comes down to. Because if you
Well,
go
and
back
I would
and listen
be
to
willing
the
to say, if you're going to do that, like, let's remember here, they demand site fees. If WWE comes to your town is paying them to come to your town.
Mhm. Right, that's why they people bid, but almost like the Olympics, they bid to host WrestleMania.
Yep.
And that's not to say that AEW doesn't get paid, because they got paid for Arlington to do the run of shows they did at Esports Arena. The same thing happens with
But it wasn't requisite. They got paid, they made a deal, they did that.
Right.
But for Dynamite to come to town, to the best of my knowledge, and I've even talked to like John Muse about this, and to the best of anybody's knowledge, AEW does not say you need to pay us to come there.
Right. I mean, yeah.
And WWE does.
Right. But if you go back and listen to, several wrestlers have talked about it, but the most recent ones that talked about it were Mansoor and Mason Madden were talking about the WWE bucket fee, how they put on the one hand, it's good because you're guaranteed a certain amount of money, but then you also are booked less so that it doesn't fill up their bucket. And that's why we've talked about that's the theory behind the PLEs having 5 and 6 matches, so they don't have to pay talent as much. And they are like, oh, well, we found a thing that works for us. No, we know.
And I mean, Tony was guilty of that with the Bucks too. Like let's call everybody out for what they did.
Oh, sure.
I mean, we are talking about that situation, but like even you said it with the other thing is that. Also, like we had a big situation here where it's like he's not putting the Bucks on TV because he has to pay them extra money. It's like
right, and they've met there, and
then suddenly they're out there a lot more.
Right.
So
and
happy fall day to you as well.
Yes,
happy
fall day.
Happy new season, everyone.
happy fall or summer, depending in what equinox.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're right. There's a whole southern hemisphere.
And if you celebrate Mabon, Mabon blessings to you. So yeah, there's a lot going on today, and it's Libra season. So if you are a Libra, like my mother, then you enjoy your season, because my season is right behind you. Mine is coming up. But yeah, so I mean,
not till January, and it's like when everything's coming out, so I'm a little scared.
Oh no. Brad corrected me that it's actually that Rampage was filmed last night and Collision is Grand Slam. So thank you for that.
Okay.
This comment says that the difference is WWE is selling out those prices. Not necessarily. NXT just got moved. Their October 8th show that they've been, because they're moving to the CW October 1st. October 8th is their big show in St. Louis with they booked Randy Orton on it to sell tickets. That venue was not selling, and so they moved it to a smaller venue. So there are some issues with that. They aren't, and there are people who they're interviewing people from other countries who have said, I got priced out. I had been saving for months. Me and my dad were supposed to go to this event, or me, my dad, my uncle were supposed to go, and we got priced out and couldn't go. And we had been planning for a year to go. So sure, they're selling up. They're also selling out smaller venues in some of these places as well, which obviously, I mean, AEW is running smaller, in some cases are running smaller venues, and they should be, but
they're not making money on house shows, and they are losing money. It's a fact. I mean, I've read those observers, those ones I have read. They're down, and like you said, they're doing away with house shows essentially because they're going calling them outdated.
Yeah, they're calling them outdated, but the fact is they're losing money, and also they don't want to pay talent.
It's just them trying to change the narrative like they always do.
Right. But AEW also has an issue selling things out. Like that's
AEW's been struggling too.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before.
It's depressing on that side is depressing because we went from a company that was like instantly selling out everything.
Yep.
I mean, we're going to Australia, and it's either I'm priced out or I'm not interested because it's too expensive. But I mean, it's not, the draw that was there is not there anymore.
I mean, it is and it isn't. And it's funny because one of those people that they hire to do those tickets is in a feud with Hangman Page. The whole reason Jeff Jarrett was hired.
Oh, that's right.
Was to be looking at He was supposed to be doing stuff with Live. I can't remember the exact title. It was like
My hype
Live,
train is really
Live
angry if you guys
Events,
say that.
something or other. They created this position for him. And granted, he's not on TV all of the time, but for somebody who's in that position, somebody who's in that position is on TV more than other people.
Well,
he's about to wrestle on Grand Slam.
Believe that they had brought him in for his venue and like actually like venue booking and ticketing, and they were very, very specific that no, he's not going to be doing a bunch of TV stuff, but he's here because he knows people in Madison Square Garden and at the Georgia Dome and whatever. I'm picking places at random,
yes. And he does know all of those places.
And he does, but how's he going to have time to do that when him and Hangman are on TV all the time?
Yeah, they have a feud. They
and
just have
these places
and then they hired
out.
They've hired what's his name? Kosa. I can't his first name I can't remember how to pronounce properly. And I think Kosha, maybe. Apologize if that's incorrect. Kosha Irby. He was in WWE. Or he worked for WWE and is currently doing that position, but that's all he does. I mean, granted, obviously he's not a wrestler too, but like that's his job and that's all he does. So yeah, and that's what Brad was saying, is that he doesn't know that Jarrett is doing that anymore because Kershaw Irby was hired to book venues last year. But
okay,
why did they have to hire him? Because they decided they started using Jeff Jarrett to do both, and he was focusing on one more than the other, it seemed like. And of course, I guess I'm sure that that Irby has the, no, I'm not saying that he doesn't have the credentials, and of course it sounds like he's a good person to have on board, but then that also frees them up to put Jeff Jarrett. As far as I know, I had heard that Jeff was still doing both, but I don't know how accurate that was, or maybe he wasn't, recently, and then he stopped, and they've got, like you said, because they've got.
Well, and this has been brought up by a lot of people, is that if this deal goes down the way that it's reportedly going to go down, at some point, like, Tony is going to have a business infrastructure. If you're making a deal like this, you are going to need to have a hierarchy and a president and a CEO and a CFO and these things are going just come on in and see the boss policy. You're going to have a chain of command, and you're going to
change the way they've ran things for the last 5 years. And it sounds like they are planning to do. I mean, I would assume that they would be planning to do that. And then this is a good point that Jeff was hired when they were doing house shows, they only did 2. I think they did like 4 or 5, and then they quit doing them. So then maybe that's when I thought he continued to do it after the House Rules shows ended, but I could be wrong. I may have the timing of that right, but that is around the time that's what he was brought in for, is when they were doing the House Rules show. And I think there was like 4 of them, and Pat Buck wrestled on one of them, 2 of them actually. And so, yeah, and then that did not work out. And then they've got other things that they're doing. So, Brad said that he thinks Rafi Mori was booking the venues and he left to go work with the Brooklyn Nets, right? I do remember that. Jarrett was brought in to make the deals with the venues he knew, and then Irby took over Murphy's role. That was I thought that Irby did, that sounds I mean, it could just very weird.
And they still have
contracts that Murphy made that they may have to go to. That makes sense. So so maybe Jarrett has kind of, I'm sure Jarrett still has, like, they're using him for his connections, but maybe he's not in the role in the way that he was when he originally came in, or maybe he's done with it altogether. That, from as far as I know, that's not been made clear.
Now,
I don't remember.
How do you feel? I mean, I think some people are enjoying the Hangman and Jeff Jarrett storyline, so I don't want to like totally shit on it. But is that like,
it's not for me?
What are you feel like? It's not for me either.
I enjoy Jeff Jarrett more than I did in TNA.
Sure. Definitely.
When he was, all over the place and, doing heel things, and not like, I think it was Garrett Kidney that had a really good thread about how, like, for someone like him who has covered TNA for years and he saw, like, Jeff Jarrett was a solid wrestler, but should have never been a champion, or should have not been pushed the way that he was. And so that's why certain people, that's what we associate with Jeff Jarrett, is TNA Jeff Jarrett, and it's hard to see past that, which has been part of my issue. Jeff Jarrett's not been somebody that
I'm a little older.
I'm not.
So I
don't
remember
hate
WWE.
Jeff Jarrett. Like, I also feel like there's other people I would like to see on TV, but then again, I also enjoy Dustin Rhodes, and I know people don't want to see Dustin Rhodes. So I get it. And I understand why people like Jeff Jarrett. And there have been times that his matches have been better than I expected them to be. And I'm sure this match with Hangman next week is going to be great. But on the other hand, like, going from a feud with Swerve into a feud with Jeff Jarrett is not where I think Hangman should be. I get they're finishing up that storyline, and they had been teasing Hangman and Okada like prior to.
Yeah, I thought that's what was going to happen, and I really.
And then they didn't. They went ahead, and I think they were smart to do the Swerve match when they did, led into the 1 year anniversary of when the storyline started. Like, all that like makes sense. And if you're taking Swerve off of TV, which it sounds like from the rumor that came out this week, Swerve will be back soon, probably because Wrestle Dream is in Washington State on the 12th. But if you're having him take a few weeks off, you have to have Hangman do something. And I guess you do. And that's what I said. We said it a couple of weeks ago. I was like, Jeff Jarrett's waiting for him. Okada appeared to be waiting for him, but now it seems like maybe they're not going to do Hangman Okada, but Hangman Okada goes back to Forbidden Door 1, right? Or didn't they wrestle on the first Forbidden Door?
I thought he wrestled Adam Cole, because that's where Adam
There
Cole
was one of those ones, Hangman wanted Okada because it was supposed to be Okada Punk, and then that didn't happen, obviously.
So it might have been the second one.
Maybe it was the second one. Maybe I'm confusing.
No, because Okada wrestled Bryan Danielson in Forbidden Door 2, so.
Yeah. But no. Hangman and Okada were supposed to have, or they did wrestle somewhere. I don't know why.
I'm sure they wrestled in the G1.
But it was after the G1. It was when he was coming over here, because there's a GIF and it's Hangman saying he wants Okada, and I don't know why my brain can't remember.
There's a lot going on.
I thought that was for one of the Forbidden Doors, but yeah, you're right. He did wrestle Adam Cole because that's when he got concussed.
Because that was when Adam Cole. I remember the spot because we were there.
Did Adam Cole get concussed in the Okada match?
It was that was the match he got.
It was Jay White. It was Jay White he wrestled. Oh, was that the 4-way?
There was a 4-way. It was a 4-way.
That's what it was. It was the 4-way.
That was a multi. Yeah, there was a 4. It was Adam Cole. Hangman might have been in that then. So it was Adam Cole, Okada,
Jay White,
and
was it Hangman?
Maybe it was. But I remember the spot that Adam Page got hurt on, because I remember seeing him shoot out of there, and we all sort of like were like, that was a bad landing. And then, of course, they had to help him off. So
right,
because I was in the building kind of when he got hurt, and it was ugly.
And that's what kind of started his unfortunate run with injuries, because he came back from the concussion, then it turns out he had 2 concussions. He had a concussion close after he came back. And the injury, then he had the injury.
Yeah, that was an ugly spot. I'm not gonna lie. That one, I mean, I even was there for the Danielson like fake seizure situation, and that wasn't even as like. I had a moment where I was like, "Wait a minute," and then I was like, "You jerk!" But that spot with Adam Cole, it was just it. It was a little. I think that's not necessarily the kind of wrestling style that Okada does. And so it felt there was almost something like a miscommunication or I mean, it's sports.
Yeah, and I think I remember that's kind of what if I remember right, that's kind of what the concussion came down to, was that it was the miscommunication.
Because he came like flying out of the ring and basically bashed his head onto the like pavement. I mean, he came out of the ring wrong and hit. Because I just remember certain things like stick with you because they're so.
Sure.
And again, we were all like worried about him. It was like, is he okay? Yeah. Like, I don't think that's selling. That was a terrible fall. And then he was helped, like the Bucks helped him off. I mean,
yeah.
You didn't see any of that on the TV, obviously, but we were in the building, and
so
he needed help, like big time needed help. Like they practically carried him out of there at that point. And it was really unfortunate. Because it was like it wasn't like it was a mess up. It wasn't like, it was a sports accident. It was a turf monster. It was a, you know what I mean?
Right.
It was just, it's the name of the game. Sometimes that stuff happens and something gets missed. And I mean, it wasn't like intentional, but it was ugly and unfortunate because it really did hurt. I mean, hurt him physically. And then unfortunately, since then, he struggled so very much.
Yeah, I saw something the other day saying it's been 1 year since he injured himself by jumping off the stage, but he was backstage recently, as was Julia Hart. And I heard that prior to that, I had heard that he had been back in the ring training somewhat. I don't know where in his training he's at, what the timeline is for him returning, but it sounds like he was probably backstage visiting doctors, which is a good thing. And Julia Hart, there was never a timetable for her either. I just knew that she was going to be out for a few months, so hopefully she's on. And then he said Tony Khan said on on the media call that Powerhouse Hobbs had been there a few times visiting with doctors, still a ways away for him because he had a pretty significant injury. But he is progressing well. I know he's back in the gym because I follow him on Twitter and he's posted a few things of him like working out and stuff like that. So he's definitely seems to be trending in the right direction, it sounds like. And then I asked about Mark Davis. We don't have a time frame on Mark Davis either. Again, that could have been just Tony not wanting to give away what was happening and what he was doing.
Yeah, like that he might be popping up, coming up here.
Wrestle Dream will be 1 year since he injured himself. Then you have Kyle Fletcher win the match he did win the match with Will Ospreay, but prior to that, he said, and we talked about it last week, he said, there's no one else I'd rather win a tag title with than you. And Ospreay was like, well, I'm no Davis. So they kind of have hinted at him. So perhaps it is because he's getting ready to return and he's going to be like, what the hell? Or maybe it's just to kind of keep his name out there. I brought him up on the call because I was like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you stop Kyle Fletcher's momentum to put him back in a tag team? Or do you just have Mark Davis do his own thing? Do you do a trios with the undisputed, United Empire North America? So there's options, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And then, so going back to Hangman and Jeff Jarrett, they've got a match at Grand Slam. It is it's a lumberjack it's a lumberjack strap match.
Oh, okay, that's it. Yeah, that's right. They just had that was Dustin Rhodes had it.
Jeff Jarrett was backstage talking. Well, he and Karen were backstage talking to Renee. Renee was like told Karen, she's like, as a wrestling wife, I can tell you don't want this to happen. And she's like trying to lay out why. And Jeff Jarrett started yelling all over her and was like, I don't care. Gotta find this. Gotta do, I have to do this. Me and you, let's get all the lumberjacks. And then basically he's like, I'm going to have my entire crew. Like he's going to have Satnam and Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt on his end, of course. And then he was like, basically fine. I assume it'll be the Elite just because they're the ones who brought Hangman back. So maybe this is where Swerve comes back because, maybe that's where this comes. I will get to Brad's news in just a second. So I'm hoping this will be the end of that storyline.
Yeah.
Now I'm hoping we do the strap match and then we move on and put Hangman into wherever he's supposed to be next. I mean, maybe I guess I take that back. I would not do anything else with Swerve and Hangman for now. I would keep them apart from each other. The story I think is done for now. I mean, the man put a syringe in his mouth, took his grill out, bashed him in the head with a chair. I feel like that's a good stopping point for this feud. Clearly, no, this feud will pick up again down the line. I personally, I mean, of course, I'm not going to say no to more Hangman and Swerve because I think outside of the women, it is their best storyline.
Yeah.
But they kind of need to let it breathe a little, because how do you follow that? Like,
yeah, true story.
How do you follow burning down a man's house and putting a syringe in his mouth and beating him with a chair? And then kind of having regrets about it, and then get mad at the regrets that you're having. And then you go over here to Jeff Jarrett and probably beat the crap out of him with the strap.
I think he needs to win this probably and continue being angry millennial cowboy.
Right. Yes, I would agree with that. And then Brad with the big news is that the Outrunners are signed to AEW. Despite not having a graphic, we need a graphic. I need an 80s graphic.
I'd be awesome.
I
want like the 80s poster from like Punky Brewster or something.
Right. I need, or do a Total Recall, since they do Total Recall as their finisher. Do a Total
nice.
Recall
Yeah, there you
poster.
go. There's plenty there.
Yeah, please. I need some kind of an 80s graphic for them, because
I really love those guys.
I do too. They're so much fun.
They're so fun.
Especially when this tag team division has been so stale for so long, to have them as a breath of fresh air. We've had them for those of us, for the 12 of us who watch Ring of Honor. We've got to see them down there. And see the fun stuff they're doing that is translated really well to TV. They sometimes, usually it's sometimes on AEW, then sometimes they have Erica Lee with them, which really works with having her involved. And I guess actually, I think Marina took her out, and we have not seen her since Marina, because they attacked the Outrunners and Marina. Because of course, you go after the big baby face as well. The Outrunners are two people to go after an attack like that, but like they had that big hot tag last night during the 10-man that like the people went crazy for. Like it was, and Jim Valley had this really funny tweet. Let me see if I can find it, because I sent it to a couple of the Slack groups that I'm in, and it was, where is it? Yeah, so Jim Valley tweeted and said, "This hot tag sequence couldn't be any more 80s if I was wearing parachute pants and Vans while drinking a Jolt Cola, eating a McDLT, and watching on a 25-inch with a top loader VCR." Old school fans should love the Outrunners.
Oh, Jim.
It's like, this is perfect. This is that describes them. And then circle. Oh, and here I just got the select. Talking
Jolt.
about the Outrunners. Yeah. So they were regulars on NWA and the OVW scene prior to AEW and ROH. We're told by sources in AEW that the duo are under contract, but the specifics of the contract or when it was signed have not been outlined. They reached out directly to the Outrunners and were told, "I can neither confirm or deny that we are old enough / too young to sign or not sign."
That's awesome.
Well, I love them. I love that they live the gimmick, and I love, like, from what we're hearing, like their merch is like selling out at arenas. And someone said, because I think I talked about it on here. Somebody said the Outrunners were outselling Swerve, and somebody joked that it's Hangman buying all the Outrunners gear so that Swerve
just
can't
piss
beat
him
him
off.
so that Hangman has all the Outrunners merch, which I would
definitely
go
wear
with that canon. We will add that to the lore. Is that
I would love a pair of Outrunners leg warmers.
Please. We know their merch game has not always been the strongest in AEW. Please get some leg warmers and a headband. I
headband, leg warmers. Get the
get the shades. I need the shades.
The shades. Yes.
You know how awesome that would be as a Halloween costume. Like if you've got like the kids who dress as Orange Cassidy and Darby, then you can have some of the Outrunner stuff out there. Like, do some stuff with your merch, please.
That was a wild decade. It's funny to make fun of it. And they are awesome. Like the way they do their gimmick is...
They do it in a way that's authentic. They don't, they are a parody. They poke fun.
Mm-hmm.
but they can wrestle. I mean, and they are like true comedy wrestlers in the way that Orange Cassidy is. Like Orange Cassidy's entire gimmick,
Or like a
for the most part,
style person, or
Yeah.
Yano, or
right. But they lean into it in such a way that it's believable and not in a haha, let's make fun of them way. Like they just get it. I don't know how else to explain it.
Agreed.
I just really, really enjoy it. Like some of my favorite, besides the Outrunners, like I really, really love Beast Mortos, our tribal chief. I love him. I love and I also, while I'm glad that Hologram is now 10-0, I think that Beast Mortos should be 10-0, and it makes me laugh. So I don't know if you guys heard the story. So last week, we were talking about how they were having the match prior to the Jags match, and it was Beast Mortos and Matt Taven against Sammy Guevara, and I don't think it was Dustin. I feel like it was somebody else, not Dustin. They had this tag team match before the thing. And so Matt Taven posted this video talking about how when he got in some trouble in Guadalajara, was in a jail, found this card. It was old and decrepit, had been stepped on a lot. And he called it, and it said, Frank Mortos, attorney at RAR. So he called Frank Mortos. Frank Mortos helped him out of a sticky situation in Guadalajara. So therefore, they were having this tag match, and it was Hologram. I knew it wasn't Dustin. Yes. Oh, and that's right, because it was for
because you're thinking of last night's match.
It was for Hispanic Heritage Month, and Matt Taven is Puerto Rican, and he's talking about. And then there's another video of Matt Taven talking about he's Puerto Rican and Italian, and how his grandmother, like he goes back to the island sometimes to visit his grandmother, and how it wasn't really real to her that he was a wrestler until he got booked for CMLL. And then she was like, funny. Okay, now I get it. So anyway, so that's where the Frank Mortos stuff. And so Mark Sterling is like, wait, Frank Mortos is a lawyer. And he's like, he even talked about it last night in the little pre-thing he did with Daddy Magic. And they're selling Frank Mortos shirts now. It's a green shirt, and it says I think it says Frank Mortos, attorney at RAR, or something like that. And I saw it because Matt Taven tweeted it. So if you miss if you see the graphic, because a few people have made photos and graphics of Frank Mortos. So if you missed that story, now you know the background of Frank Mortos, attorney at RAR.
He totally needs to cut one of those lawyer commercials we were talking about in the beginning.
Exactly.
He should. He has to. That would be amazing.
It would be him and Smart. And they have like
1-800-RAR.
Yes. It's just like, and it's funny because Beast Mortos will tweet sometimes and he just says RAR, or it's like a bunch of letters, and it's very funny. But yes, so I am a big fan of all of them. Let's see what else got added. We got some other things thrown out there last night. Let's see. We do know. Okay, so the opening match. So I really enjoyed the match, but I was annoyed that happened on AEW, not Honor Club, because this is the perfect way to get people to subscribe to Honor Club, is to have a bunkhouse brawl match with Dustin Rhodes, because his father is the king of bunkhouse brawl matches. So you have him and Sammy against the Kingdom for the tag titles. The Kingdom is who had the titles. That's who Dustin and Sammy beat for them. This is an ongoing feud that they've had, and a bunkhouse brawl match made perfect sense for the story they've been telling. And I guess you can argue, well, they won the titles on Collision. Again, those titles should have been won. They should have changed hands on Honor Club. And so,
it's so funny because I was like looking at that, and I was like, oh, why is this not on ROH?
Because Tony doesn't, and the title didn't even change hands, because Tony doesn't change titles on ROH. On the pay-per-views, yes, but not on the main shows. But yeah, so I don't know why this wasn't. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why. It's just because, and I guess you could argue if ROH is part of the TV deal, coming to TV, you can say, if you like this match on Collision, when we come to True TV next year, come watch more of that. That's probably where their thinking is. But as somebody who watches Honor Club on a regular basis, this is a match I would like, because I am paying. This is a match I would like to see on Honor Club. So I was annoyed by that. But anyway, the match was fun. I really enjoyed it. Later on in the night, Dustin and Sammy are talking. Sammy issued a challenge for a eliminator match against Okada. If he beats Okada, he will face him for the title at Wrestle Dream, I think is how it was laid out. I believe that's what I believe if he beats him. So I think the match is happening at Grand Slam. They didn't specify if it's Dynamite or Collision, just one of the Grand Slam shows. And then I believe that if Sammy is to win, that he would face Okada for the title at Wrestle Dream, even though he already has the title. So we see that that's still coming, because that All Out was a lot of that stuff. And so that's a thing that's happening. Yes, and I did see that. That Bennett and Taven cut a promo after the show, and they're going after the AEW tag titles now, and they're officially moving on from that, which, again, I like Bennett and Taven, but I have seen so much of them between ROH and AEW. They were one of the few wrestlers that defended their titles or had proving ground matches on both Honor Club and AEW, and it's like, oh, like constant, like they're always on, and now they're doing it with the Premier Athletes. The Premier Athletes are constantly on Honor Club in some form or another, and now they're constantly on Collision or Rampage, and it's getting to be too much. And also, there are other teams. Like, I would like to see the Infantry on TV. Like, I'd like to see, like, let's rotate. You've got the Outrunners and MXM collection now. Like, and of course, we'll get to MXM collection because they've got a match too. But, like, we need to not have like, if you're going to have them be featured on both, then give us a break. Like, I don't need to watch them on Honor Club and then turn around and watch them on Collision, because that's what's happening with Premier Athletes. Like, I'm constantly watching them, and it's too much. It's getting oversaturated with them. And so I guess if they're leaving ROH, then, I mean, and it makes sense because Roddy doesn't come to ROH anymore because he doesn't have the title, so he's never there. So the Kingdom probably should be brought up, but then you need to elevate your ROH tag teams and have somebody fill that spot, because they were on there so often that they need to fill in that void. And hopefully an MXM collection is supposed to be on both. They're more AEW than ROH. They've got promos on ROH, and they've had some matches there, so I don't want to say that they haven't, but I would like to see. And then I like, you have GYV, who to me, GYV is going to be the ones I still think they're going to be the ones to dethrone the Young Bucks. And I guess you're kind of making that, you're filling the void of the Lucha Brothers being apparently not quite gone like we thought they were. Because that came out this weekend, that they are not officially signed with WWE and they are still under contract with AEW. But they are expected to go to, there's a bunch of confusion with what's actually happening there, even though WWE is supposedly already working on merch for them. So I don't know. It's a whole bunch of confusion regarding that. And so the tag team division in both ROH and AEW is in a lot of flux. But I would like to, and we don't see a lot of clear division, which we never have except for Athena, because she's the only one not on TV. But I mean, and again, if ROH is coming to TV, then maybe some of that filters out and you see primarily ROH tag teams on ROH and more and that's one way to start, is by putting the Kingdom only on AEW and not putting them on ROH. So there's that. It's just a lot of oversaturation between the Kingdom and Premier Athletes. It's constant, and I need a break from them. And again, I enjoy the Premier Athletes. Okay, like, they're not my favorite, but I don't mind them, but like, I don't want to see them 3 times a week. either. So there's that. Brad, that's a good point. Brad said that if Sammy wins, he get okay. Thank you, Brad. Oh, that's right. 5-year anniversary show was before Wrestle Dream. I keep forgetting that. I keep thinking it's Grand Slam Wrestle Dream. 5-year anniversary show is October 2nd.
Yeah, and I think I read today that Britt Baker's
that's the
coming
title
back.
Tuesday. The title Tuesday show is the October 8th. Is October 8th, right? And that's when it goes up against NXT.
I know there's a Tuesday show coming.
Title Tuesday is up against NXT second night on CW where they have Randy Orton.
Right.
And they made a tag match with Axiom defending their titles against deleted the graphic. I forget who they're wrestling, but I almost guarantee that's where Motor City is coming because it will be opposite of AEW's
Actually, that's it's so funny. That's what the people that I've talked to about the Motor City situation, that's what they believe. They believe it's
counter programming. Well, I mean, I
actually had someone say directly to me in one of our private it's all set up for them right there.
Well, because the reason I realized that I was talking to a friend because they announced Randy Orton is wrestling Javon Evans on the October 8th show, which huge for Javon Evans. I'm excited for him. And then my friends was like, I guess I won't be watching live because that's Title Tuesday. And I was like, I forgot. And I was like, I bet they're going to have Motor City debut there because it's countering AEW programming. They're not going to AEW. That's the perfect way that's the WWE petty middle finger to have Motor City show up on opposite of their show. Then they announced the tag match. And I was like, that just confirms what I think.
Yeah, someone had already pointed that out to me, and he was like, it's all set up for them if that is what's going to happen. So
it makes perfect sense. I mean, WWE is not stupid. They might be petty, but they're not dumb.
I mean, they still have been doing this for a long time. They do know what they're doing.
Right, exactly. And they did this before when WWE and when NXT and Dynamite were originally on the same night. This is what they did. They counter programmed each other all the time, or they would bring WWE would bring in the big name wrestlers to get ratings against AEW when they were losing the ratings war. That's what they were employing those tactics. So of course this is on brand, and it's a smart thing to do. If the situations reverse, it would make sense for AEW to. I mean, they could debut Shelton Benjamin and MVP and Bobby Lashley opposite of the CW. I mean, I could also see that happening. They can counter program right back, depending on which one you care about. They could do that. So there's that. I mean, they do have the anniversary show, which is coming up before that. So thank you, Brad, for the reminder of that, because also the 5-year anniversary show, we do know that they kept promoting the return of Britt Baker. Like Britt has been, it's like, why are they promoting it like she's coming back from injury? She's coming back from a shitty match at All In. Like they're like, and of course, like I assume, like I guess they want fans to be excited about it, but like I just assumed it's in Pittsburgh. It's the 5-year anniversary. I already assumed she was going to be there, and then
I saw that on Twitter this morning, and was like,
they kept promoting it last night. They did like a little, not graphic, but a little video comes up, and it had the date, and then they changed the date to say DMD, like, and then they put up the little band, they put up a graphic a few times, and then Tony talked about it, and Tony Schiavone was like, the return, and I was like, she's not returning from injury. Like, she already did this. She's returning from a crappy match. That's what she's returning from.
Well, I mean, it is wrestling business, so I guess we have to assume here that they're trying to get you excited and trying to make
they made a match for her,
you remember that she used to be the face of this thing, and you should be all excited. Well,
and they're
about
in,
it.
and they the whole.
And I guess not everybody bought the pay-per-view, so they don't know that she had a crappy match.
But then there's the we know Britsburg and that whole thing that they did, and so So one of the last things they showed last night was, so Serena Deeb and Queen Aminata had a phenomenal match last night. They got 10.5 minutes, which was 3 times as long as the champion got. Mariah May beat Lady Frost in 3.5 minutes, which I was that match should have gotten more time, but I guess their argument is the champion should be beating Lady Frost in 3.5 minutes. So I guess I get that. And they are building a story with Aminata and Serena Deeb that's been happening for a few weeks. I was surprised with them leading into the main event match. It got 10.5 minutes and this is the stuff that they should be doing with Queen Aminata. So I was really pleased with that. So after a little bit later, Serena's backstage and she's talking about how her and Britt are two of the originals in the women's division, talking about their history in the division, and Serena basically challenged her to a match. And so that's where we are with that. And Brad said debuting talent don't get hype videos the way Britt did. Yeah, it was a really interesting choice the way they handled that. I was just like,
makes me wonder, like, Serena Deeb is awesome. Is she going to carry Britt too?
She kind of hinted. She was like, she was like, if you think you could handle me, show up at this match is basically what she got at. So,
I mean, I'd hate to see her go through another crappy match again.
Serena's going to have to carry her. Yeah,
but,
she can't.
I mean,
in Pittsburgh, she can't. In her hometown, in front of her family.
It's not going to look so great if she's...
I mean, if I remember right, her and Serena have had some pretty solid matches.
I hope so. I mean, maybe she just needs to get all that. Hopefully she's been in the gym and getting the rust off and doing the thing.
She hasn't wrestled since that match. And Serena's been out here killing it. And like I said, she just had this incredible 10-minute match with Queen Aminata, and we haven't seen Britt in a while. So I don't have high expectations. I'll put it that way.
Me either. It's fine. I mean, I know that she was a draw for the company once, and they're probably trying to work with that, and that's fine, and I get that, but it's just not as big of a draw as it used to be.
Yeah, and then we're also doing we're doing Saraya versus Jamie at Grand Slam. I know Saraya debuted at Grand Slam, so I figured she was going to be on there. Depending on what her contract situation is, some people are saying this could potentially be her last AEW match. I won't be surprised if she's already re-signed, but I guess that's unknown at this point, or at least not publicly known. So we're doing a Saraya's Rules match. And then Saraya, I wonder if I can find them. Saraya she didn't go through them. Harley Cameron went through the rules, and Harley Cameron is very funny. And she read out the rules, and which were really funny, and then she was like, she put the list in her mouth afterwards, and Renee broke because she was not expecting it. And she tweeted earlier and was like, I saw her jaw unhinge and I lost it. Okay, so here are the rules for the Saraya's Rules match. Apparently Saraya was like, everybody knows what these matches are because me and my family have always done these matches. I don't remember ever hearing, I don't think Paige, I don't remember them doing this in WWE, which I can understand why they may not have, but I don't remember them doing a version of this for Paige in WWE. But yeah, apparently we were all supposed to know what the Saraya's Rules match was because our family's been doing them for decades. So here are the rules. There are no rules except for the following. You cannot use weapons unless you are Saraya. You must obey the 10 count unless you are Saraya. No biting, choking, closed fist, hair pulling, or groin kicking unless you are Saraya. No hammerlocks. Saraya never liked those anyways. No outside interference unless you're a friend of Saraya's. No rope breaks unless you are Saraya. The match must only begin with offense from Saraya. Then this is not a rule, but they call Jamie Hayter a slag, which is the UK slang for slut. So they're sluts. We're going back to slut shaming because that's what we do here with Saraya apparently. And then and then it says the winner receives an autographed copy of Saraya's autobiography available now on pre-order. So that is what we were doing.
I will not be rushing out to get that.
How the hell do I get? I mean, I guess I was gonna say, how do I time that? But I mean, I guess just between the bells ringing. But that
doesn't even make sense. It basically says that the other wrestler can't wrestle Saraya.
which I guess if I was Saraya wrestling Jamie Hayter, that's the only way I could probably be Jamie Hayter, is basically what that tells me. Is that tells me Saraya is not good enough to beat Jamie Hayter, which I could have do that without doing these matches, but that's just, yeah, I don't care about this match. I'm sure Jamie will find a way to get him some offense, but if this ends up being Saraya's last match, they're going to send her out with a win. They're already promoting her book. Like, Jamie should win, but if she loses, then it can just be like she beat her in those rules, that in a match that was designed for her not to win, I guess, is how they could do it. But like, I just don't care about matches. I'm just I don't know how else to say it.
No insight, don't care.
Yeah. So that's what Megan said. Oh, what? Yeah, a Saraya's rules match. We have, thank you, Will. We have a super chat from Will. It says, have you heard anything about Megan Bain? Is she with AEW or not? I know Dave said she wanted to work with Marigold, but nothing else. From what I understand,
mystery of Megan Bain.
From what I understand, Megan Bain is no longer with AEW, but the door is not closed. Apparently, they just, for whatever reason, couldn't work something out. It sounds like there was a creative deal. I guess there was the Marigold stuff, because when Megan Bain was signed, AEW signed her and she immediately went to Stardom because that was already in place. And so Tony agreed to let her fulfill that commitment. She came back. For whatever reason, they didn't debut her. And some of us thought originally, because, we knew somebody was going to come with Mercedes, we thought that it might be Megan, and then obviously ended up being Camille. She's been, and even before Camille was in the picture, Megan Bain was wrestling pretty frequently for GCW. And so that's when it kind of came out that she's not with AEW anymore. And so my understanding is there were no bad terms between them, so they could work something out and bring Megan Bain back in. But if she's wanting to go to Marigold, then obviously that seems to be her priority, and also in the pipeline for WWE. So that they may have missed the boat with that. That might be. We may never. I mean, if she goes to Marigold, I would not be shocked to see her go to WWE, because that seems to be kind of even though Rossi Ogawa said it was not going to be a feeder for WWE, I don't think anybody believes him, especially because that's where that's what's happening with Julia. And it probably won't be the last time. But from my understanding, I haven't heard anything since then. So I could be, maybe there's been some developments, but the last I heard was completely done with AEW. She's still doing the GCW dates. She's doing other indies, I believe, as well. And then that was the last I heard of that. So hopefully that answers your question as well as it could have. And then Brad makes the point that if not that one. If she was going to Marigold, she would have been gone by now. There's that too. So it will be interesting. I would like to see her in AEW. She's somebody that has really built herself up into this really good character. I heard she was having some really incredible matches in Stardom. It sounded like she would have been a good fit for AEW. It's unfortunate that they couldn't work that out. So, but it sounds like it's positive that it ended amicably. And if they wanted to bring her back, it sounds like they could, or she wanted to come back, that maybe they could do that. So we will see. But sounds like I've seen a couple of her matches in GCW, and she looked great, and she wrestles. She does a lot of intergender wrestling there, too, which is really cool to see. So, Benken, going back to the Saraya match, Benken says it sounds as those rules. So the rules sound a lot like Christian versus Orton. And so that I can break the rules, but but if you cheat, I win. Yes. Yes, yeah, sure, Rossi. Yeah, and I think though, wasn't there? Oh, so we did add another match for one of the Grand Slams. I assume it's the Collision Grand Slam. The Collision episode is MXM versus the Acclaimed, because MXM stole Max Caster's jacket, because Max Caster has this thing where he calls himself the the best professional wrestler or the best wrestler. I don't know, some bullshit that's not even remotely true. And so he's been wearing a jacket that says it. And so MXM stole it and have done something to it. They've probably, bedazzled. I don't know, who knows what they have done to this jacket. And they had it last night on Collision, and it was in like like when you go to the laundry, like when you go to a laundromat, or not a laundromat, but a dry cleaner, and it has the white bag. They had the jacket like that, and they were like talking about how they want, what was it? They know you want us to unzip it right now and whip it out, or something along those lines. And they're like, but we're not going to do that tonight. We're going to do it at Grand Slam. And so we get the big reveal at Grand Slam, and then we get the match with the Acclaimed. And so I was like, let's get this match out of our systems and move MXM into something else. And let's break up the Acclaimed and get Anthony Bowens by himself. Please. So there's that.
And I apologize if you guys are overhearing my neighbor. It's this, I had to like chainsaw and mow and blow, use his blower all at the same time. So if my hype train was active today, the dogs are all over the place. It's a mess in here.
Okay. We'll get through. Oh yeah. And so we also have, speaking of going back to women's matches, we have Mariah May, who just had the tag match last week. It was her and Serena Deeb versus Yuka Sakazaki and Queen Aminata. And then both Queen Aminata and Mariah May wrestled last night in separate matches. But Mariah May is wrestling Yuka for the title at Grand Slam, which is interesting. Like, I don't hate it. It kind of came about quickly, but I'm not mad at it because I love. Yeah, he's been getting, Yuka is just back and already in the title picture.
Yep.
Listen, I don't know. Maybe we don't know how long we're gonna have Yuka, because poor Yuka got injured pretty quickly. I feel like the last time that she returned, I can't remember what it feels like she wasn't back for very long before she got injured. But I think it'll be good for Mariah to have somebody with that like that. Yuka has obviously wrestled for a very long time, and it was funny because Mariah May is on commentary. And she was on the commentary for her match. It was Yuka versus Serena Deeb, and it was Yuka's first match back. And Mariah May was out there, and she was like saying this was child abuse because Yuka's only 10 years old. And Tony was like, she's been wrestling for a really long time, like more than 10 years. And she was like, no, she hasn't. It was distracting me because I'm trying to watch the match and type, and usually I have to listen. Sometimes I have to rely on commentary telling me what's happening so I can, like, if I miss it on the screen. But they were too busy. Mariah was too busy distracting them, and she was making me laugh. And I was like, this is hard. I'm trying to listen to this and listen to Mariah. But yeah, she was great on commentary. She was really funny. And so we have this match. And somebody asked me last night, they were like, can somebody explain to me what Yuka's character is? I was like, she's the magical girl. That's her character.
That's right.
That's it. She just doesn't care. She looks unassuming and she'll kick your ass. And Mariah May got this 19-second promo that aired last night on Twitter, and she was like, bully me, Yuka, I dare you, bully me, and she just walks off. Like, it's great because Mariah's underestimating her, and Yuka is gonna beat her ass. I mean, of course I expect Mariah to retain, but she's gonna barely retain, and it's gonna be great. But I'm just really excited to see. Yeah, exactly. Yuka is the magical girl. That's her gimmick. Brad says we're gonna get Dark Yuka, and it's gonna be epic. I don't know
that could be interesting.
I don't know that I've seen Dark Yuka before, but I'm here for it because
that could be cool. That could be fun.
Yes. And then Brad
Necromancer Yuka.
Right. Brad says, I'm sure there's going to be something set up with Mariah and Mina at Wrestle Dream post-match since Mina is back on Wednesday. That's what my thought was they were going to do Wrestle Dream there because Wrestle Dream is obviously to honor Antonio Inoki. And so it would make sense to have something like that, to have Japanese women. I mean, obviously Inoki was not doing things with Japanese women and wrestling, but from where we have progressed and from what Tony does, and they did have women on. They had Chris Statlander and Willow, I believe, were on the first Wrestle Dream. I think it was Chris Statlander for sure. I think, but I want to say Willow was on that as well. But I could be misremembering. But and then I will go back to this comment real quick. It got pushed out of the SVA guy said that things are complicated with Bane. Sounds like that. I don't know if you mean is that with AEW and her, or are you meaning like Marigold and her going back to Japan because she did the Stardom stuff?
You probably all of the above.
Certainly possible. Vicken said that that Yuka's tag team moves and her tag teams with Mizuki are named after Toy Story.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And no, we have not talked about this. That Tony fights Mayu in 2 weeks for the IWGP Championship. Wait, did we talk about that promo? Did that promo air? Yeah, wait, I thought I mentioned it last week because Tony.
You might have.
Tony had the promo. Yes, because Tony had the promo and she's talking about a diaphragm.
That's right. Yes.
We did talk about it last week.
Yes, we did. We did mention it last week.
I saw that promo and I was like, only Tony Storm can say that and make it work.
Pretty much.
And it's perfect for her. But yes, and then I did see that Mayu Iwatani did accept the match and that it is happening in a couple of weeks for the IWGP Women's Championship, which is great. And I like that Tony's still doing the time with Tony bit, the character, and it will be interesting to see how it evolves. But I like that I like that they're keeping her away from Mariah, where Mariah can kind of establish herself as the glamour even more, and Tony can do this character and take it to Stardom and have these matches where she had so many matches before. Yes, I did see that too. That pay-per-view will have English commentary as Walker will be doing the Stardom pay-per-views going forward. I saw him make that announcement. Excellent. He was really excited about that, which is amazing for him.
I'm excited about that. He did a great job this summer. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I really didn't think that there was going to be a replacement, and I actually
seamless the way he moved into. I mean, of course he had Chris Charlton and things like that to help.
Absolutely,
and in the beginning, Kevin Kelly helped him when he first got in there, but he just like a fish to water. Like he just
he really came into his own this summer for the G1. I think just like for the wrestlers, you're doing that every day practically, and you're over and over, and you're with guest hosts with you and trying to do all of these things. I mean, again, we always say this, but Walker's 21, 22 years old. He's only going to get better. So, and now he's expanding out. And he's prepared and he's excellent. And it's bringing back that same thing. The one thing that I really, really, really like, someone had made this point because they were really sad about the Kevin Kelly situation, because he had for a long time been one of the best. Like he had done such a good job of painting pictures, and it's not the same, and it's also excellent. It's Walker's bringing his own thing to it while making it really, really. I mean,
I agree.
Great job. He just doing a great job. So that's awesome.
And also, for a quick sidetrack, and then we'll move on to because I think that covers most of the matches that have been announced. Actually, we'll go back to the promo from last night too. But I did not realize that Mina Shirakawa is 37 years old.
Oh, wow.
I saw because she was talking about coming to the US, because she was saying, and I didn't realize because I was talking to Josiah about it. She's only been wrestling for like 6 years, so she only started when she was like 31. And I thought she was similar in age to, I just assumed she was similar in age to Mariah. But they were saying, because she was saying how like she is older and knows that she doesn't have that much time basically to make herself a star. And then she got the opportunity to come to the US, and she was like, well, if I pass it up now, like I don't know that I'm ever going to get this opportunity again. So I just have to jump on it. And so she did the stuff this summer, and then is coming back on Wednesday and will be, more involved with things. So, but I was shocked by that. I was like, no clue. I was like, I thought she was the same age as Mariah and Tony, because Mariah and Tony are close in age, I think 25 and 28 respectively. So I just assumed that and I didn't realize she'd only been wrestling for, I think that I knew that she hadn't been wrestling for very long. So I think that was another reason I assumed she was younger. And because she had only been wrestling for a few years. But I was very surprised by that. But she's done, for somebody who's only been wrestling for 6 years, she's nailing it in in-ring performance and character and all of that stuff. And she's really good at her promos are really solid, and her English is I think you can understand her pretty well. And so she's got that going for her too. So she's progressed. I mean, I didn't see her in the beginning, but I can imagine that she's progressed a lot in the last 6 years if we're to get the version of Mina that we're seeing right now, which is incredible. Before we move on from Grand Slam, I do want to touch on the Nigel McGuinness promo from last night. So that was technically the main event, because they did the 10 person all-star match. Then they brought Nigel. We heard from Nigel, and so Nigel has been, if you follow Nigel on social media or have just seen it from AEW retweeting it every day, he has been going on has been going on social media, calling out Danielson, saying, it's day 7 of me challenging you and you still haven't responded, because then he calls it the fragile countdown, the fragile countdown is what he calls it. And now he's got a shirt that says Brian fears Nigel, hashtag fragile countdown. And he's been selling. Mariah quote tweeted it and said that she needed one. So she's blowing kisses to him in the match last night. Nearly
I did do that.
So Nigel comes out. That's this promo on Danielson. More of the same. Like, I called you out, not responding to me. If you don't show up, it's not because you're not cleared. It's because you fear me. You know that I can beat you and all this stuff. So then Tony, this part was a little interesting. They brought in Tony Schiavone off commentary, because this was happening on up on the top of the ramp. Tony Schiavone's like, I've listened to you for weeks talking trash about Danielson. You know what you're saying is not true. You know he has neck injuries. You know that he's not healthy right now. We don't know that he can actually wrestle you. Quit trying to spin it to make Danielson look bad. He's like, I've been calling wrestling for 5 decades. Bryan Danielson is the greatest wrestler I have ever seen. He's the greatest wrestler I've ever called, and you know that. And Nigel was like, this doesn't concern you, go sit down. And so he did. So that was kind of interesting, but I guess it's because they weren't bringing out Danielson, so they had to have somebody counter him. So Nigel comes down to the ring and he cuts this really passionate promo to the point that he was almost in tears because of how emotional he was getting. And he was talking about their career, and how that he's been screaming from the rooftops to anybody who would listen for years that he is as good as Bryan Danielson. And only 2 people know that, and it's Danielson and himself. And he's never gotten the chance to prove that. I mean, they did their ROH feud, but since then, from what Danielson has become since their feud, and Nigel's had to sit on the sideline, Nigel has said that, because it came out like there was earlier this week, Nigel did an interview and people assumed that he retired because of his neck or because of hepatitis. And he said neither one of those were true. He never had hepatitis and it wasn't his neck. He had been cleared from that. He said he could not make money wrestling professionally anymore. There was just no money for him because he was supposed to sign with WWE. They said he failed his physical. He said that he thinks that's not true. He doesn't. He said he was fine. He should have been cleared. And so when they said that, he was like, I couldn't make money in wrestling, so I had to stop. And it basically, watching Danielson have this career in WWE, and it's the career that he never got to have because WWE didn't want him, and there was no AEW at the time to take him, and there was nowhere else for him to go, and he couldn't, or he could have gone to TNA, but then he would have been making no money, and so he just, so knowing that and then hearing the speech, like, I can't imagine how that made me feel, just as somebody who has listened to Nigel on commentary. I've never seen Nigel wrestle. I missed their entire feud in ROH. I've heard nothing but good things about it. ROH has put their entire feud is now available on Honor Club. It sounds like it's worth the $9.99 for that. And then they also added this week, they added some of his other matches with Mark Briscoe, I think Samoa Joe, a couple other people. They added his stuff to it. And I think they also did a timeline where you can go to YouTube and you can watch kind of some of their history about it. And so he was just basically saying that, he needs this match to prove that he is as good as Bryan Danielson, and he cannot retire until this happens. And so it's just really, really great. And I don't like how we got to this match because of we already had, it was supposed to be Darby and Danielson at Grand Slam, and now Mox is trying to bully Darby into taking his, which that's going with Mox's character. So I get it, but it also has these holes, and I get what they're doing with Jon Moxley, but I wish that Nigel had what they should have done. Nigel should have won the tournament and not Christian. And this is how Nigel gets his shot at Danielson, but it's not a title shot, if I remember correctly. I think Danielson's title is not on the line here. It's basically Nigel McGuinness needs to prove himself against him. But the promo, if you did not see it, AEW on TV posted the entire 7 minutes all together. I think AEW tweeted, but they had split it up into several different videos. But AEW on TV posted the entire 7 minutes, and I would highly recommend going to watch it. I feel like I told Nikki after I listened to that promo, I was like, I feel like had we watched their feud, we would have been fans of Nigel McGuinness as a wrestler. I just feel like that's the impression that I got from that. And she's kind of agreed. So it was I know some people were expecting Danielson. I think Danielson won't show up till Grand Slam. His music will hit. I think Nigel comes to the ring first. Danielson's music hits, takes him a little bit to come out to the ring, and he eventually comes out and we get our match. I could see this match because somebody, I think it was Paul, might have been Paul, was tweeting with me last night, and he was saying that he doesn't want Nigel to lose, but also Danielson doesn't need to lose going into Wrestle Dream. But I feel like this will come down to a draw, and that we might then that will set up a proper rematch down the line somewhere else. Or in the off chance that Danielson has surgery that severely limits him, then they at least get this match is where I think they're going to go with it. But we'll see. And then I don't know if you have any comments on this match and what your opinion is.
You kind of covered it. I think that you're probably right, and I think it makes the most sense to do it that way because they're clearly keeping Danielson off for some reason. So, right.
And then, and Brad said this too, that Nigel said that, he said it'll probably be AEW announces Bryan isn't cleared. Nigel celebrates it. Bryan says he doesn't care about being cleared, beats Nigel. And then Nigel says his loss doesn't count because Bryan wasn't cleared. I could definitely say, that seems more likely than it ended in a draw, honestly. That sounds way more likely. Yeah, AEW put up an 11.5-hour video of Nigel's history on YouTube. And also Nigel, if you watch Nigel's videos, he put up a Vimeo link and you had to use a certain code. And so I went to it, and it was Nigel put out a documentary a few years ago. It's like an hour and a half long, and it talks about his career and why he had to retire and things like that. And so I didn't have the time to watch it yesterday, but that documentary is out there. And then I retweeted it I don't think I retweeted it under, maybe, you know what? I might have retweeted it from Powerbombshells, but BJ Bethel had a really good article about Nigel this week because BJ got to watch Nigel wrestle like a dozen times or dozens of times when he wrestled kind of in that area Was it OVW? Maybe it was OVW, or I just blanked on the name of one of his local indies that he's told me about. But anyway, so he got to interview Nigel in the past, and he said he hasn't talked to him in like 20 years. But he was just talking about how like Nigel should have been in WWE. Like there's no and he was like talking about how the rumor goes that, he felt his physical and all this stuff. But article from BJ was really, really good. And I highly recommending it. I'll try to repost it. See, they said it's easy to find, but it was really great work from him. And so I'm way more interested in this match than I am Darby Danielson, which we're probably getting at Wrestle Dream anyway. But I wanted to touch on that, and I know that we've been here for a while, so I will quickly get through the Athena thing. Because, so Athena, if you watched our show last Sunday, Athena broke Samoa Joe's record. She is the longest reigning ROH World Champion in ROH history. And they did finally give her a graphic. They put up a ROH timeline thing, and that was it was 5 hours long. And I watched like the first 20 minutes or so just to kind of see what it is. And so it kind of starts with her coming into AEW, her early matches. She was a babyface, obviously. She competed. There was, when Toni Storm was interim women's champion, there was a 4-way match at Full Gear. Listen. So the one thing that I was surprised about is, so they show her, the last thing I got to was when she was wrestling Mercedes Martinez at Final Battle 2022, which is where she won the title. And they didn't show the Jody Threat match. Like, you have access on Dark. The Jody Threat match turned Athena's career around completely. That is the match that set her up on the run she's on now, and the character that we've seen, because she had done a little bit of the hard-hitting stuff, but that was the one she went all in on, the hard-hitting matches that we see now. Jody Threat gave it right back to her. Supposedly they got into heat, there was some heat on them backstage because of it. I thought it was great because I watched it in real time, and I was like, this match is, and I remember tweeting about it. And then later on, there were other tweets, and they were like, I can't believe Athena would treat Jody Threat like that. And I was like, did we watch the same match? Because Jody was giving it back just as much. So that match started everything, and they did not acknowledge that, which annoyed me, because that's Jody Threat erasure. That match is what started it all. So I thought, okay. And so then Athena's tweeting about how she might have done a thing. She has this video. There's 2 dresses. She's been hinting at a celebration. So I assumed on Honor Club, we were going to get an Athena celebration. We did not get Athena at all. Athena was not anywhere on this show. And apparently it's because they pre-taped the show. I was talking to somebody, they heard that it was taped the week of All Out. So she would not have broken the record, and I guess they didn't want to do the celebration. I mean, clearly she wasn't going to lose between the tapings and then, but I guess my assumption is that they didn't want to do a taping of the celebration when she had not actually broken the record yet, because then people would have heard, oh, Athena's going to break this. She already broke the record because we saw the celebration, which we're not stupid. We knew Athena was not going to get this close and then lose and was going to lose it. And she's not been wrestling as much. I mean, she had a match. She did have a Proving Ground match recently, like two or three episodes ago. So I don't know when their next set of tapings are. I hope that we get a celebration soon. AEW Television did not mention her at all. They could have mentioned it on Dynamite when they were talking about what was it? They were talking about, I don't remember if it was the ROH title. They were talking about something with ROH. I can't remember now what it was. And I was like, you could have just been like, and speaking of ROH, congratulations to Athena. But no, we can't do that here. So then I thought, okay, maybe they'll save it for Rampage and Collision, because they'll show a clip of her celebration. But there was no celebration for them to show a clip of. So they just completely ignored it. Nothing about Athena. Again, if ROH is coming to TV, you should acknowledge Athena. I mean, you should acknowledge her anyway, but you should freely acknowledge that. So I was annoyed, but I assume it's because of the taping. And then, so one other thing I want to mention about Athena was I didn't realize this the first time I skimmed the article from ROH's website, but they brought up a couple of things that since Athena has broken this record, there are actually other records that she could still break if they wanted to do this. And so let me pull this up. So if the record for her to, so she broke at 646 days is when she broke Samoa Joe's record. So her next thing is very close. If she makes it to 707 days as champion, she will break Jay Lethal's record, which combines both of his world title reigns. Then there's also a 798-day reign that's the combined length of both of Jay Lethal's World TV Championship runs. So 707 seems fairly likely. Have not done the math on where this would put things if she did the 707 or the 798. And then the longest record would be 1,486 days, which is the total of the Briscoes' 13 tag title reigns.
Wow.
So there are those things on the horizon. I feel like the 707 is probably going to happen. I was going to say, I still think she loses that final battle to Billy. And I think that would be the way to go. And then have her go to Wrestle Dynasty and start her AEW journey and start her journey for Mercedes' TBS championship is what I would do. But if they wanted her to break that, I guess she could beat that and go into Wrestle Dynasty as champion. But I don't think they really think Final Battle is going to be, because they've already been planting seeds again with Billy and her. So I feel like that's what they're going to do. But the 707 is not far off. And she does have a title match at the Maple Leaf Pro Show. Her title is on the line against Giselle Shaw at that show. So I don't know if that's her next title defense, if she'll do anything. I don't even know if she'll have a proving ground match. That'll probably be her next title match on October 20th. So that's a month away. Maybe they do a proving ground match in between and then have that be her next title match. So yeah. And Vingan said he wonders what the plan is, but all in Texas. Yeah, I feel like yes. I think that's kind of where I feel like they're planting the seeds for her to beat Mercedes at All In for the TBS Championship, which would make sense because Athena is from Texas.
Yeah.
And so I feel like they started planting the seeds for that. And so that means that Mercedes is going to hold the title through that. And so Mercedes is not on Grand Slam as far as we know. There's been no title match announced no match for her. So she didn't wrestle at All Out. Right? Yeah, she didn't wrestle it All Out.
Right.
And then maybe the anniversary show is where she wrestles next. I wonder if they skip her. I wonder if they skip her for Grand Slam and then which would be interesting to have her and Britt Baker rest. Oh, wait. No, Britt Baker's already spoken for the one women's match. Unless they shake things up and do 2 women's matches on the anniversary show, our one women's match is spoken for. So
there you go.
We should see. But I believe that's it. I believe we have covered everything. We have kept you here long enough because it took us a while to get to our topics because we had some other things to talk about. But we made it.
We made it. So thank everybody for being here and for the super chats and the engagement and the awesomeness.
Yes. I will quickly say we will be here next week, but I will not be here. I have some in real life things that I'm dealing with, which I will eventually talk about, but I have to deal with that first. So unfortunately, I will not be making it to Ashe's show next week, which I'm very sad about because it's the first Ashe show that I have missed. And I love going to their show, so I'm very bummed about that, but I will be back. The plan is I should be here for actually probably the week after that. Mel actually will be doing in real life things. And so we think
Sam and Aaron
that,
to switch off. We're gonna need a ton of honorary broads.
yes. So yes, we are going to try to introduce you maybe to new honorary broads, maybe some old,
maybe.
maybe bring back some old honorary broads. But we should both be back for October 12th for the pre show for Wrestle Dream. That is our current plan.
That is my plan.
But regardless, Power Bombshells will be here next week and the following week in one form or another. It just will be us and an honorary broad. And somebody will have to tell Daza, is it him? We don't know yet.
We don't know if it's you,
Daza. You will have to tune in and find out if it is you, Daza.
We know he's going to ask, so we're going to just make sure that we don't know yet. The greatest mystery ever.
Yes, and Vinca, also the greatest mystery is a possible opponent for Mercedes in general, or yeah, I don't know what I can't tell who they're going with next, because the Brit stuff backfired so spectacularly that I don't know if they're rethinking things or if maybe Mercedes already had some plan timed away and and what they're doing. Who is booked strong enough? I mean, Athena, but Aminata is actually probably getting. I feel like she's going to get a title shot sooner rather than later, just because of the way they're building her, and she keeps just having these really great matches. That I feel like, because you've got Red Velvet came back this week. She's the TV champion. Yeah, I guess there's Jamie Hayter once she gets past Saraya.
Oh,
but
yeah,
I really don't. And they have somebody, but I don't think that Jamie Hayter can take a loss this early. I mean, losing to the champion is not going to hurt her, but also she just came back. So that's a very good question on who is next. Because I mean, Athena is who I always go to, but I think they're doing that. USDA guy says to get Karen Peterson. Works for me. I don't think I'm familiar with Karen. The name sounds familiar, though.
I know Karen Peterson, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
Sounds good. All
right. There we go. Tony Khan, if you're watching this, get Karen Peterson.
Do it. I trust USB guy. So. All right. So we're really going to end this, you guys. I mean, I will definitely see you next week. And we will be here, like Sam said, for the next 3 weeks. Just might be a little weird.
Just a little different.
Don't be afraid. It's just a little change, and then it'll all be.
And then it'll go right back to normal in 2 weeks.
Everything will be fine. You won't even remember. All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a great week.